Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to another 3 hours of exploring random Fallout 3 locations. You guys seem to enjoy these videos for studying, for working, for driving, for settlement building in Fallout 4, or for whatever video game you're building. A lot of people enjoy these videos. All it is a compilation of my series, the Unexplored Capital Wasteland, a series where we go to various locations throughout the game, try to find secrets, interesting locations. We go to major locations, we go to small locations, marked, unmarked, doesn't matter. Anyways, this is a compilation, and I hope you enjoy. So without further ado, let's get started. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out the VAPL 58 power station. Just another power station that is found in the Capital Wasteland. However, this power station might be one of the best, simply because the loot here is really good. So let's waste no more time, because really there's nothing else to these locations, they're just copy and paste. Let's dive into VAPL 58 power station. Now the power station is located just southwest of Arifu and just west of Vault 106, right there on the world map. Now as I approached from Arifu, I had some pretty crazy random encounters. Specifically here, I found a group of raiders that were just walking by, and then they got mauled by a Yao Guai, and then I killed the Yao Guai. Additionally, there was also a Protectron out here just kind of roaming around, killed him as well, and eventually you'll stumble upon VAPL 58 power station. We can see this pylon here collapsed and broke through the fence, so you can actually access the power station without opening the front gate. Now inside we can find a lot of good loot. However, to access some of it you're going to need 100 science or 100 lockpick. I do have 100 lockpick, so it's possible. Right next to this small safe we'll find a copy of Dean's Electronics, and then we will find a very hard lock terminal and safe. This safe is 1/3 the size of a normal safe, and if you pick the lock, which was actually quite easy for me even though it's very hard, there were some chems inside of it. On this little shelf back here next to a baseball glove, we can find a Stealth Boy. Over on this workbench, we can find a Nuka Quantum, and on the bottom, we can find a bottle cap mine. So all in all, pretty darn good, but the loot is not done yet. Hidden above us is a mini nuke just sitting on top of this light fixture. So you can just simply shoot down the mini nuke and then it disappears into nothingness. But yeah, it's in here somewhere. It just landed over here by this table. So we'll pick up that bad boy. Now there is also a ladder which leads us to the roof of the substation, and up here we can find a grill, some seats, some beer, and a BB gun, and there's also a copy of 30 handy flamethrower recipes, so make sure you pick up that bad boy. From up here we can get a pretty good view of the surrounding area. As you can see, there was a giant rad scorpion just hanging out in the distance, but besides that's all it is. But I shouldn't say but besides that, because hey, that's pretty darn good loot for one of these substations. Now, if we head to the southeast, we can find this abandoned shack. In the middle of the shack, we can find yet another bottle of Nuka Quantum, along with a first aid kit and a teddy bear, and also some what appears to be Brahmin corpses. So, not half bad either. I just wanted to point out, over here to the south-southwest is a small farm filled with Brahmin. Perhaps whoever used to own that shack owned that farm as well and was, breeding Brahmin. Alright, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Normally these power stations are kind of boring, they're just kind of copy and paste and act as fast travel points throughout the map, but this power station actually has a lot of good loot inside of it, so I'd highly recommend stopping by if you get the time. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching, and as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out the Anchorage Memorial, which is just this large bronze statue which sits on the Potomac River, commemorating the Battle of Anchorage, Alaska. Obviously in our timeline this battle hasn't happened, hopefully it'll never happen, but in the Fallout timeline, China invaded Alaska, and there was a brutal fight that took place between the US and Chinese forces. America lost control of Alaska, but eventually did regain control through Operation Anchorage. And of course, in Fallout 3, there's the DLC Operation Anchorage, where we can play a simulation of the fight against the Chinese, which I'm sure we will cover one day. Speaking of that DLC, during it, we can actually see the photo being taken by a photographer who tells 3 American soldiers to strike a heroic pose, and then he remarks, hey, it might be famous one day. Very similar to the flag-raising picture on Iwo Jima during World War II. And talking about the soldiers who strike the pose in the DLC, there are some differences actually in the pose they strike in the statue. One is the flamethrower. The flamethrower here in the bronze statue appears to be an old-style World War II flamethrower, which does not ever appear in Fallout 3, whereas in the DLC, the soldier is just holding a normal flamethrower. Additionally, the soldier on the left here is holding a missile launcher, but in the DLC, he is holding a Fat Man. Don't know if those differences were intentional or there's not enough attention to detail, but it doesn't really matter. Now, the Anchorage Memorial is near the center of the map, just along the Potomac, just east of Willem's Wharf, and just south of DuPont West. Now, I'm sure many players are familiar with Anchorage Memorial simply because of the quest Wasteland Survival Guide, where Moira Brown will task us with infiltrating the undersection of Anchorage Memorial and planting an observer in the egg nest at the very bottom. Now, she prefers that we do this without killing any of the Mirelurks inside because that could disrupt her studies. And there are 2 ways you can do this. One, you can just sneak past and run past all the Mirelurks, kind of like I do, or you could go there before the quest, kill them all, and then go there, and that actually counts. Now, when I arrived here, I found all of these hunters here, and I was really surprised to find them here. I never remembered them being here. Turns out this is just a spawning point for a random encounter, a situation. Now, personally, I think having the hunters spawn here is extremely lucky and the best spawning point for them, because in my headcanon, I can tell myself that these hunters want to re-establish the Mirelurk meat processing plant that is in the under part of the facility. You see, Anchorage Memorial used to be home to several Wastelanders that were using it to breed Mirelurks, and they were breeding them for their meat and making all kinds of delicious Mirelurk meat. I don't know how good it is, but it appears that it's very delicious. However, these Wastelanders were eventually killed, we can assume by the Mirelurks or perhaps some other third party. And really cool is that these hunters don't ever seem to leave. I left for a few weeks in game time, came back, and they were still here, so I just thought that was really cool. Now, we're going to run through the facility really fast for Moira Brown, that way we can come back and actually kill the Mirelurks. So we're going to go through and just kind of run through this place really fast. Our goal is to get to the very bottom where we can find the egg nest of the Mirelurks, place them inside, hide the observation device, and then we can run on out of here. Pretty easy, actually. Now, if the Mirelurks do see you, you can just simply run past them. Even the king, usually they're not quick enough to kill you. So you just kind of make your way out, very easy. And if you didn't kill any Mirelurks, then you get an extra reward. You get a hat on top of 6 stealth boys. The hat makes you more stealthy, so hey, not bad at all, and doesn't require much extra effort. Now, also, depending on your special stats, you might have some special dialogue options here, like I do, regarding your adventure in Anchorage Memorial. I decided to go with the intelligence response just because I thought it added some cool details, or at least scientific details, about Mirelurks, and we can even give the Mirelurks a scientific name, which is pretty freaking cool.
Scientific of you. Personally, I wasn't sure if they were crabs or if they came from some sort of brine shrimp, perhaps. Some of these observations about their armor and camouflage gave me an idea for reinforced neutral-colored headgear. Here, consider it thanks for not interfering with them. Oh, speaking of which, take these, so you can continue to avoid them in the future.
And with this portion of the Wasteland Survival Guide completed, we can now head back to Anchorage Memorial to fully investigate the entire facility. Now, on the outside of the facility, you might occasionally find some Mirelurks just kind of roaming around. I found this one Mirelurk who was somehow injured, and then 2 hunters that were with it. Maybe the hunters heard it, who knows? Or this rad scorpion, who knows? But to the north, we can find this kind of trailer and a super mutant overlord. Do be careful, because this overlord could fuck you up. But for me, I actually got really lucky, as you'll see here in a little bit. But you definitely want to come over here because we can get some really good loot out of this tent and out of this truck trailer that is next to us. But talking about this overlord, he was kind of beating the shit out of me. I was just using this tiny plasma pistol against him. Don't really know why I was doing that, bit crazy. But as I got backed up into the water, I fell into the water, and the super mutant overlord actually chased me into the water. I was kind of panicking because I thought he was going to hit me or something and kill me. But I went up top, I killed the centaur, I came back, and I found the super mutant overlord had become stuck in the water. He couldn't draw his weapon for some reason, and he was just standing there drinking the delicious river water of the Potomac. So I just started shooting him in the head, and he started screaming about hot potatoes. Don't know why. He was also trying to throw grenades and all kinds of other funny random dialogue. But man, he really wants a hot potato. So make sure you like this video so we can make sure our good friend here gets some hot potatoes. I don't know the connection, but hey, it helps out the channel. But anyways, after killing him, we looted his body, and I was very happy to find a mini nuke on his body, along with a stim pack and some other good stuff. After that, we can go untie this captive so you can help her out, and of course you can choose to take her stuff or give it back to her. Either way, you'll get some karma. Then we can find the Keller family transcript, which is the 5th tape, and then there's also some ammunition boxes underneath that table. If we head back outside, head over to this trailer, go inside the trailer on a shelf, we can find a copy of Pugilism Illustrated, so you definitely want to pick up that bad boy. And then directly above it, we can find this first aid box with some random healing items. Now back at the actual memorial, we're going to head to the northern entrance, which is the one we used earlier during the Wasteland Survival Guide quest. I don't know why, but as a child, I used this entrance, so it's just kind of nostalgic. It just feels like the front door for me. Anyways, instead of going directly down, we're going to go to our left, which opens up into this kind of small section up here. If we open up this utility room, we can find a dead Wastelander, along with all kinds of blood and stuff around the room. So we definitely get a scene that something very bad has happened here. On this table, we can find 3 pre-war books, and then I got scared shitless by this damn Mirelurk hunter, who just barged into the room and started beating me up, but I was able to kill him with some well-placed laser rifle shots to the face. There's also some random junk on this shelf, which might be of use to you if you're into crafting or trying to make some kind of weapon. And then this bed in the back, well, it has blood all over it. In the next room, there really isn't a whole lot, but we can find this desk with a little lamp on it. There's 1 bottle cap in the desk, but really there's not much loot of interest inside of this room. Now back outside, if we go to our right, we can find a workbench which has a bottle cap mine on it, so make sure to pick it up real quick. Then as we make our way down to the second level, we probably will find some more Mirelurks just like I did. I found a hunter just hanging out over here, so I started shooting him in the face. He chased me upstairs, but eventually I was able to kill him. Then going back downstairs, we can now explore this second level. Now down here, there is a vending machine, which we'll talk a little bit about later, but in the middle, we can find this Anchorage Memorial Facility Terminal. It has an average lock, but you're going to want to open it, because with it, we will have the option to unlock the secure medical safe. And if you actually click on this, we get a note, which reads, "Ted, remember, I hid this stash for you to find. Don't trust anybody, especially anybody who works for me. Do this alone. I busted the storage door down near the service entrance. There's a floor safe in the clinic that contains the parts to fix the broken door. I also left you a repair manual just in case you've gotten rusty. But you were always a wizard with a wrench, so I'm sure you'll be fine. Now, get going." So this terminal has some very important information that is very relevant to us. We can actually fix this broken door and find the door component to make it easier to fix. Now there's some other options on this computer, like turn on backup generators or initialize water management systems. However, neither option does anything. It just says system failure. Now behind the vending machine here, we actually have some access codes. So you're going to want to head and make sure to pick those up. There was nothing in the vending machine besides Nuka Cola. Who would have thought? Now inside of this room here, we can find another dead Wastelander. He also had a Chinese pistol on him. There was some junk on those shelves. And then we can find the medical room, which was mentioned in the terminal. Also a damaged gnome in the corner, just always kind of scary to me, don't know why. Now there's some bottle caps on this one table, so I went ahead and took all of them. And then over here on this table with the lamp, we can actually find a DC Journal of Medicine, Internal Medicine, which is kind of hiding there, so make sure you pick it up. And then we can find the floor safe, which is now unlocked. And then we can find a copy of Dean's Electronics, which is the repair manual mentioned in the terminal, along with the door component. So make sure you pick up both of those for later in the facility. After that, we can enter the Anchorage facility bay, which is this large room with several floors. There are a lot of Mirelurks in here. My recommendation is to go about the floors, killing all of the Mirelurks first. That way it makes it easier to explore later. After you've killed all of the Mirelurks, you can really go any which way you want. I decided to go to the top first. That way I could just work my way down. Now, truth to be told, there really isn't a whole lot of loot in this part of the Anchorage Memorial. There's just a lot of Mirelurks, and of course, the Wasteland Survival Guide is at the bottom of this room. Now, at the top, though, we can find a mercenary with Merc's orders on his dead body, and these orders read, "By now, your handler's given you the location of the job and your basic orders. Here are the details. Traders have been making a killing with Mirelurk meat, and we've been losing business because of it. One of our people got involved with a caravan supplier, and we finally know where it's all coming from. The meat's mostly coming from one group holed up along the river, smack in the middle of the ruins. There's a huge old facility under some war memorial where they've herded up a nest of Mirelurks and have been breeding and butchering them. They've been in business for months and are sure to be sitting on a pile of caps. Take what you can carry. We just want them out of the meat market. The rest is up to you. This isn't the biggest job, but pull it off clean, and there's plenty more work for a man with your skills. Get back to your handler as soon as the job is done, and we'll be in touch." So obviously the meat operation at this facility attracted some unwanted attention, but it appears this Merc was actually killed by the Mirelurks within. He was most likely not expecting them to be a problem. Anyways, heading back down, eventually we can find these double doors, which lead to the memorial service entrance. And this is where we will want to head next. However, I just want to show off the bottom part one more time. It has some water in it, and there's the Mirelurk eggs, of course, down here as well. But truth be told, there is no loot down here, but there are some creepy piles of human remains. And then as we make our way to the memorial service entrance, we will find a lone Mirelurk up on the top floor. After that, there is a bottom floor, and there will be a Mirelurk King in here, so do be careful of him. But I just used my 44 Magnum, and I just kind of shot him from above, and whenever he used his, I don't know, his telepathic ability, I don't know what that's called, head cannon on me, I just kind of ducked back and was able to avoid damage, and then I sent his head fucking flying. Just absolutely beautiful. Now, staying up on this floor, on the top floor, we want to activate this switch, which will open this door to some, service tunnels. Then there will be some Mirelurks in here, so go ahead and take them out, because that'll make your life a lot easier, of course. Or you might get jumped by a Mirelurk like I did here. You can make your way through, but really most of these rooms are just empty or have dead bodies in them. But eventually we can find that utility door, and if we have the door component, we only need 35 repair to open it. If you don't have the door component, you will need 95 repair to open it, kind of a big gap. Inside we can find a Nuka-Cola Quantum, some bottle caps. We can also find a note about a supply stash and also a key, Anchorage stash key. These are both very important, so I highly recommend picking them up. But besides that, there isn't a whole lot of loot inside of here. You can look in the suitcase and stuff, but I didn't really find anything worth mentioning. Now, if we take a look at that note, it reads, "The stash is hidden downstairs in one of the freezers. Rocky set it up. You know his style. Don't forget the key. You'll need it to unlock the compartment." So now we know there is a secret compartment within one of the freezers, so we'll make our way downstairs. Also, if we go all the way to the back of these service tunnels, we can find a door which will lead us to the southern side of the memorial. It's a very easy lock, so easy to pick if you want to get outside real quick. Now, downstairs where that Mirelurk King was, we can find some first aid boxes, a lot of alcohol, we can find some Mirelurk cakes and other Mirelurk meat down here. All very good and very interesting if you want it. Now there's two ways to head downstairs. It doesn't matter which way you go, there's a staircase and a door, but they both just loop to the same area. Downstairs you're going to find a lone Mirelurk, so go ahead and take him out. After that, we'll go down here and explore freely, and we can find what appears to be a butchering room. We can find several Mirelurks on tables, and then we can find 3 refrigerators. The first 2 on the left are just normal, and the one on the right is the one with the compartment. Now, if you have a high enough perception, you will notice this compartment without the note, but if your perception is too low, it disappears as a normal refrigerator. Either way, though, you have to have the stash key to access the 300 caps inside of it, along with the Mirelurk Cakes recipe. So especially if you're early on in a playthrough, 300 caps can come in quite handy, and this is a pretty easy 300 caps to get. And finally, we can move on to the Anchorage Memorial Facility offices. On the 3rd floor of the Anchorage Memorial Bay, we can find the door to the offices. It looks like different from all the other doors within the facility because it's just a normal door, whereas all the other ones are like mechanical doors. Now there's a terminal and stuff in here which we can use to open this safe. The safe is average locked, the terminal is average locked, and then we can find a collapsed portion of the offices. Now there really isn't a whole lot in these offices. There's some bathrooms and one lone office, but of course it's in pretty bad shape. Now if we go down into this tunnel, be prepared for a somewhat difficult fight. Also a really creepy skeleton hanging from the ceiling. Pretty actually good though for the ambience of the place. But anyways, I found a Mirelurk King and a Mirelurk Hunter working together, and it took me quite a bit of time to get through both of them, but eventually I was able to do it with a final bullet to the Hunter. And with that, you can make your way through this cave all the way to the back. We have to dive underneath the water, and then we can find an exit. There is another exit or / entrance into the Anchorage facility underneath the water. It's at the northern end of the Anchorage War Memorial, right where I am now. Now back on top, there is one last thing I wanted to show, and that is the top entrance to the Anchorage Facility Bay. It is right here on the west side, and it is an average lock, so that is of course one option to get inside. A really easy average lock, I might say. Now you may have seen it with the quest information on the left side of the screen, but during Chapter 2 of the Wasteland Survival Guide, you have to hurt yourself quite bad, which I did. I almost died, very close to death, and I also hurt my leg, or crippled my leg, and that concludes Chapter 2 of the Wasteland Survival Guide for me. Of course, you can actually tackle each chapter in whatever order you want. Just the injury was the last thing I needed to do, so I went ahead and did it in Megaton. It's really easy to do, so I just decided to put it in this video since it's Wasteland Survival Guide, and I thought I got really lucky, and I thought it was really funny. And there you guys have it, the Anchorage War Memorial. This is a really cool location. However, I always thought the inside was a little bit confusing, but after making this video, I have a much better understanding of the layout. Hopefully this video can also help you explore it if this is what you're using the video for. Otherwise, I hope you learned something today while watching this video. Again, I think I am incredibly lucky that these hunters are just hanging around the memorial. Perhaps one day they will open up their own Mirelurk meat business within the facility. Who knows? Alright guys, if you have any recommendations or ideas for future videos or future locations, please post them in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, until next time.
Oh, this facility is a stunning accomplishment by the creative minds at the Nuka Corporation. We use cutting-edge equipment to keep the world's most popular soft drink in full production 24 hours a day. This unit prides itself on over 457 days without a single death or major limb loss of any personnel.
I mean, if you think about it, in the Fallout universe, 457 days is, well, nothing. It's been over 200 years since the Great War. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out the Nuka-Cola plant, which is officially known as the DC Nuka-Cola Bottling Facility. This is a very large 3-story factory building, which was the main supplier of Nuka-Cola to the Washington, D.C. area. Of course, that was before the bombs fell. After the bombs fell, it's, well, abandoned, except for a lot of the robots that still operate inside, and also a new mutated creature Nuka lurks. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Nuka-Cola factory. Now, the Nuka-Cola factory is located just east of Andale, southwest of Falls Church, and also east of Tenpenny Tower. Now, in the surrounding area, there's actually quite a bit going on. There's like a small city here that was just a suburb of Washington, D.C. back in the day. We can find this Enclave training outpost with a lone Enclave officer, so make sure you kill him and then take some of the loot that can be found here. Then if we head up this staircase, we can find a Dot Diner. These are just random small diners littered across the Capital Wasteland. However, this Dot Diner has something special about it. Behind the main counter, where obviously the employees would have worked, we can find a bag of flour. This is the only flour in the entire game that is guaranteed to spawn here. There are a few other spots where flour can spawn, or perhaps we can buy it, but this is the only spot that has a 100% guarantee of being there. So make sure you pick it up, especially if you wanted to make some food or something like that. Now, this area, like I said, appears to have been a small city. We can find a lot of the destroyed buildings and stuff, but unfortunately we cannot go into those buildings. And then we can approach the Nuka-Cola plant. Now, just outside, we can find this Nuka-Cola fountain, which features a bottle of Nuka-Cola in the middle, and then electrons going around the bottle, like the bottle is an atom. Then, as we make our way around to the backside, we'll find this giant rad scorpion, so make sure you kill that. With dog meat, fighting is so much easier in this game. Anyways, out back we can find some loading docks, where obviously bottles of Nuka-Cola would have been put on trucks, and in this truck here we can find a skeleton, and also a bottle of Nuka-Cola Quantum, and in the other truck we can just find regular Nuka-Cola. Between these two trucks, there are 10 bottles of regular Nuka-Cola. Now, in a lot of places, these sliding doors or garage doors are openable, but here we cannot open them, so yeah, no use. We cannot get inside in the back. Now, there are raiders in this area, so make sure you kill them, because over here to the east of the Nuka-Cola factory, we can find this Wastelander that has a note on them that says, "Marry me." And if we read this note, it reads, "Sweetie, listen, I just can't wait any longer. I'm sending this letter via courier, and I'm begging you to respond as soon as possible. Why should we wait any longer? Forget our parents. Every day I sit here and watch my brother Kevin wither away from radiation sickness. Am I next? I don't want to waste another second of my life. Let's just get married and make a future for ourselves. Megaton, Rivet City, maybe even Tenpenny Tower. Who knows? When I'm with you, I feel like I can do anything. So marry me, you fool." This note is kind of sad because the body underneath the bench is that of a woman, so we can assume that she was the woman that he was, sending that message to, and they never got married. Quite sad. On this building over here, we can actually see some Enclave propaganda. I've always thought the Enclave propaganda is really funny. Why in the hell would they waste such resources on that? But anyways, just thought I'd point it out. But I think that covers pretty much everything in the immediate vicinity that is of interest, so now we can make our way inside the Nuka-Cola plant. Now, right at the entrance, we'll find this little counter here, like a reception desk. And immediately above us, if you look in the ceiling where this kind of part of the floor is collapsing, we can find a filing cabinet. Make sure you open up this filing cabinet because we can find a copy of the Chinese Army Special Ops Training Manual, so definitely want to pick that up. Also in the entrance, we can see some banners advertising Quantum. If we go to our right, we will find the cafeteria, and there will be a lone Nuka-Cola security Protectron in here, so make sure you destroy it, and then we can find a copy of Dean's Electronics on this L-shaped counter. There's 4 Nuka-Cola fridges inside of this room. Nuka-Cola fridges are just kind of special, kind of cool. Then if we go left from where we entered originally, we can find this room where there's a lot of computers and stuff. This is actually the R&D department. And just through this door, we can find those loading docks that we saw earlier from the outside, and there's going to be more Protectrons in this area, so make sure you kill them. I shot that forklift there and it caught on fire. That scared me, but anyways, we'll deal with that later. For now, I want to look at these research terminals because there's some very interesting entries about Nuka-Cola Quantum on these, so let's check them out. Now, if you're not interested in these terminal entries, please just go ahead and skip ahead in the video. But if you're interested, here we go. So the first entry, titled Company Announcement, reads, "The Nuka-Cola Corporation is pleased to announce to all its employees that the first shipments of our Nuka-Cola Quantum are on their way to retailers in the Washington, D.C. area. This flagship test market program is the culmination of a 3-year research program to bring the refreshing taste of Quantum to market. Congratulations to all employees on a job well done." Now the next entry, which reads Quantum Progress Report 0067, reads, "Test subjects in the Nuka-Cola Quantum program are responding well to the reconfigured taste in the new isotope. The only listed side effects from the group are 3 cases of dizziness, 1 case of nausea, and 1 case of impaired vision. We find from a sampling of 50 that this is an acceptable number of cases and approve this product for production." The next entry, which is titled Quantum Progress Report 0055, reads, "Isotope CE772 has proven too damaging in the initial test group, which now needs to be disbanded due to the reluctance to continue in our program. This group has suffered 4 fatalities, 12 major internal organ failures, and 32 internal radiation burns. This is an unacceptable number of issues in a given test group and recommend we switch to an alternative isotope, such as CE774, and then Quantum Progress Report 0041 reads, "Isotope CE770 has proven to be a disastrous failure. All of the test subjects suffered severe internal organ failures and died within 3 days of ingestion. We recommend the immediate destruction of container A32 in the production rooms and suggest switching to isotope CE772. Please send standard Nuka condolences, fruit and cheese packages to test group members' families." Man, these terminal entries give us a really amazing idea about just how cruel the Nuka-Cola Company was. The final entry, new flavor color, reads, "Attention all Nuka-Cola Corporation employees, we are very proud to announce that R&D has been completed on Nuka-Cola Clear. With an only minimal loss of life, we've been able to modify the look of Nuka-Cola but give it the same great taste. We will be submitting the product to marketing shortly for bottle design and advertising strategies. From all of us in the research department, thanks for the support." Now, while Nuka-Cola is of course the Fallout universe's parallel of the Coca-Cola Company, this here, Nuka-Cola Clear, is actually a reference to Crystal Pepsi. And if you don't know, Crystal Pepsi was released in 1992 during a transparency trend, but it failed due to low sales. But yeah, they advertised it as a clear version of Pepsi that retained its original taste. I don't know how accurate that is because I never tried it. However, as some of you do know, I live in Japan. When I first came to Japan, there was Coca-Cola Clear. However, I haven't seen it in a long time. I tried it once, but I wasn't a big fan of it. Either way, I guess Nuka-Cola Clear or Coca-Cola Clear actually exist in our timeline as well. Now back to Fallout 3. So I decided to shoot that forklift again just to blow it up so it doesn't kill me later. And inside of the marketing room, you'll notice there's a safe, but we have to get a key to open it. And we will not get that key for quite some time. Now within the loading docks, there really isn't a lot in the way of loot, so we'll just make our way through. And as we come to this next part, we see a fight taking place between a Protectron and then a Nuka Lurk. And this is our first encounter with Nuka Lurks. They are a unique variant of Mirelurks, of course, and they're found exclusively here at the Nuka-Cola plant. Now, as we move into the storage and mixing vats area of the plant, we're going to find a lot of Nuka Lurks. Now, when you kill them, you might want to loot their body and take their meat. This is because Nuka Lurk meat is very rare and very difficult to acquire. We can acquire up to 10 pieces. However, I found not all Nuka Lurks actually carry Nuka Lurk meat. And as we make our way into this next room, we can find a Protectron in its machine, but it's not activated. And then over here we can find a terminal, which will activate the Protectron along with a laser pistol, some energy cells. We'll also find a first aid box with random healing items inside, ammunition box with some microfusion cells, and then we can hack the terminal in order to turn on that Protectron, and that Protectron can of course help us against the Nuka Lurks. Additionally, on this table here, you're going to want to pick up this note, "Welcome to the Nuka-Cola family." This can actually help you a lot later in this facility, especially if you're a lower level, and it reads, "Hello, Larry. On behalf of the Nuka-Cola Corporation, I'd like to welcome you to the shipping department at our bottling facility in Washington, D.C. Your official job posting is shipping clerk, and your employee ID number is NCSD 7016. Please keep all this information handy at all times. Thanks again and welcome aboard. After we pick up that note, we'll continue making our way deeper into the storage and vat facility. And as we make our way down, it is a little bit creepy because of the Nuka lurks, and eventually we find a pool of water. However, I don't really think it's water. It's more like a mixture of water and maybe Nuka-Cola Quantum, or just something that goes into the Quantum. And obviously, it has created this mutated version of Nuka lurks. And we can see this Nuka lurk was freaking the fuck out in the water after I killed him. He really loves to drink this, whatever this sludge is at the bottom of the facility. Anyways, you will find a lot of Nuka lurks in this area, so take them all out. And with dog meat and the Protectron, it was actually pretty easy, but if you're a lower level, it might prove to be a little difficult. Anyways, you're going to want to walk up this scaffolding, and you're going to find it eventually collapses. You actually just want to drop down, but you can actually jump across the gap. And if you try to go any further, though, there will be an invisible wall, so we cannot go into that collapsed portion of the facility. Instead, we'll just fall down to get over some of the rubble that has fallen. As we go to the staircase, we'll be ambushed by a Nuka lurk. Then we'll make our way upstairs, and we can open this door to the Nuka-Cola plant offices. Now, there are 3 floors of offices. The first 2 floors, though, are by far the largest. The top floor is literally just a door. And in the offices, you're going to find a metric fuck ton of rad roaches, but pretty easy to get rid of them. And there's also going to be a few Nuka lurks, so make sure you take care of them. Now, on the first floor, I'll be honest, there really isn't a whole lot, but this floor was obviously used for marketing because we can find some active terminals still like the one in this cubicle. But with these entries, I'm actually not going to go into so much detail, or I'm not going to read them, just because they're not that interesting. They just kind of detail Nuka-Cola's marketing strategy for Quantum. Now, the first thing they did do with Quantum is they just teased it. They didn't release its name. They just kind of released commercials and radio ads and billboards featuring the blue color of the soda. And then in the next 2 marketing phases, they actually reveal the name Quantum, and then they reveal the tagline for Quantum, which is, "Take the leap, enjoy a Quantum." Now, since there are terminals on all floors of the office, the only thing of interest on the first floor is this hard-locked door. If you open it up, you're going to find 4 skeletons inside of a small closet. And in the corner here on this skeleton, we can find an ominously titled note, "Help me." And "Help me" reads, "He threw me in here. I can't believe he did it, but that bolt-brain 4-man psychopath locked me in a closet. A goddamn 17-minute break? That's why it threw me in here?" And we can assume that this poor soul died. Perhaps it was at the time of the Great War, and nobody could ever get him out of the closet. Apparently, he died because he took a 17-minute break, and we can assume he was only supposed to take a 15-minute break. Additionally, in this closet, we can find some first aid boxes with some healing items, but besides that, there is, well, nothing else in this closet besides, well, just a lot of scary thoughts. Now, on the second floor, we will find more rad roaches, of course, and we can also find some pretty good loot on this floor. Immediately to our right, we can find the large center room directly above the area where that locked closet was. Take care of the rad roaches up here, and if we go inside of this office here, we can find a safe which is actually unlocked, and on top of the safe we can find a copy of Lying Congressional Style, so make sure you pick that up. Now, inside of the safe, there really isn't a whole lot besides some bottle caps and some pre-war money, but it's a pretty small amount of money. After that, if we go to the far western part of the second floor, we can find a dead mercenary. There's also a stealth boy next to him, and if we loot his body, we can find a note which is titled, "Finding the Formula." And this note's pretty interesting, and if we read it, "Winger Mercier. The formula for clear Nuka-Cola is on the first floor of their DC plant. That's where they did all the R&D for it. Get the formula and meet us at the Red Rocket Tricycle Factory as we planned. Our buyer is promising a lot of caps. So I want to see some hustle. This could take our gang to the big time. Sudden death, overtime forever. Goalie Lado. Sounds like that could be a future location in an Unexplored Capital Wasteland video. Red Rocket Tricycle Factory. Anyways, in the next room, we can find a magical rad roach which somehow teleported into the floor. I was literally unable to kill it with a gun, but thankfully Dogmeat, the absolute wizard, the absolute badass, was able to get rid of the Radroach. Also in this room, we can find a copy of a big book of science. Definitely pick that up. Besides that, for the second floor, that's pretty much it, and we can now make our way to the third and final floor, which, like I said, just a door. And this takes us back to the main area of the Nuka-Cola plant. However, this is the area that was previously inaccessible, unless you have a 100 lockpick. But anyways, assuming you don't have a 100 lockpick, we'll want to explore this first area because we can find Milo, the shipping foreman. Now, using that note we found earlier, welcome to the Nuka-Cola family, we can actually impersonate Mr. Larry using his ID number, or you can try and pass a speech check. It is completely up to you. I got lucky and passed the speech check. And once Milo here trusts you, you can then request a key to the safe in the R&D department, and Milo will grant it to you. Pretty freaking easy. You can also tell him that you're looking for the factory shipping manifest for the quest Nuka-Cola Challenge. It's just an optional objective, but he will also give you the password for that terminal. And the password for the shipping terminal is NC-C1864, and this is a nod to Star Trek ship registry. This is the registry for the USS Reliant, a ship that Khan steals in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Anyways, with that password, we can now access the shipping registry, which is located directly behind Milo, and here we can find some of the shipping locations for Nuka-Cola Quantum, and we can see old only. Man, that was a good time. Anyways, after that, we can look in this closet. We can find a copy of Tumblers Today, along with an easy locked safe that just has some ammunition, caps, and pre-war money inside of it. Not a bad find for an easy lock safe. As I move over to the next area, do be careful because you're going to find more of these security protectrons, but they're pretty darn easy to deal with, I imagine, even if you were a low level. But in the second area, we can actually find 3 bottles of Nuka-Cola Quantum. You're going to find a bottling assembly line. Just make your way to the bottom, finding your way through the protectrons. Inside this small room, we can find a very easy lock terminal. So hack the terminal, and then you're going to find all of these options. You actually want to do the second to the last option, load Quantum into sorting unit. When you click on that, you will get a ready at the bottom of the screen. The other options just give you an error. After the screen says ready, hit activate. And if you go outside, the assembly line will now be broken, but there are now 3 bottles of Nuka-Cola Quantum waiting for you. Really easy way to get some Nuka-Cola Quantum for your adventure, for, Nuka-Cola Challenge, that quest. And with that, we can now move into the final area. Now, there will be a first aid box as you make your way to the third and final area, and we're just going to find more of that assembly line that we saw in the last area. We can go through this kind of passage here, which will take us out to this other, assembling, or, maybe this is where the liquid or the Nuka-Cola is poured into the bottles. There will be some protectrons in here as well. Take care of them. We can go to the top and we can just find some machinery. There's really nothing to do in here. After that, we can go through these double doors, find that very hard lock door, but if we activate the door switch, the doors will just simply open. And this door will forever remain unlocked, so pretty darn good. After that, we can head back to R&D and use the key on the safe where we can find the Nuka-Cola clear formula, along with 4 Radaway, which we definitely are going to need that Radaway if we start drinking Nuka-Cola Quantum. Or any Nuka-Cola for that matter. Now, it is worth mentioning, Nuka-Cola Clear is not actually a recipe. It's not something we can actually create. It's considered a miscellaneous item, and it's an item that has a purpose at a different location. The Red Rocket Tricycle Factory. So we will have to discuss that in a future video. But there you guys have it, the Nuka-Cola plant. This is a really cool location featuring some unique enemies, and it really gives us insight into just how evil and terrible the Nuka-Cola company was in the pre-war era. They had a cutthroat business model that involved violence against their competitors, and they had no care about human life, even killing people to push their products to the limit, and to make them as tasty and as addictive as possible. Just absolutely crazy. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts about the Nuka-Cola factory in the comment section below, along with the Nuka-Cola company, kind of a staple of the Fallout universe. If you guys have any ideas or recommendations for future locations or future videos, please post them in the comment section below. And, as always, Thank you so much for watching, and until next time. Good. After that, we can head back to R&D and use the key on the safe where we can find the Nuka-Cola Clear formula along with... Now, it is worth mentioning, Nuka-Cola Clear is not actually a recipe. It's not something we can actually create. It's considered a miscellaneous item, and it's an item that has a purpose at a different location. The Red Rocket Tricycle Factory. So that's right, everyone. We're just continuing our journey just slightly to the north from the Nuka-Cola factory. Hello, everyone. The Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Red Racer Factory, also known as the Red Racer Tricycle Factory. Now, if you want to meet the Raider gang here, sudden death overtime, then you need to head to the Nuka-Cola plant first and recover the recipe for Nuka-Cola Clear. This is part of the unmarked quest just for the taste of it. So if you want to meet them, then you can check out my previous video on how to get Nuka-Cola Clear. But if you don't, if you already got it, or you just want to see the location, then let's dive on into it. Now, the Red Racer Factory is just northeast of the Nuka-Cola plant, just southwest of Falls Church Metro, kind of in the southwestern part of Washington, D.C. Now, in this area, there's going to be a lot of raiders, especially as you make your way from the Nuka-Cola plant to the Red Racer Factory. So just be aware, but I mean, at this point, for me at least, raiders are awfully easy to dispatch of. Now, as I made my way from the Nuka-Cola plant to the Red Racer Factory, I came up upon this hill here, and there's a very large parking lot just below the factory. I imagine this is where the employees at the factory used to park, and there was a couple of raiders inside of the parking lot, but we went ahead and got rid of them. Then, as we approach the Red Racer Factory, we can find a gang standing outside that calls themselves Sudden Death Overtime. Now, Mr. Ledoux here will be a little bit upset that his friend or partner, Mercer, is dead, but it's not our fault that he is dead. He just died in the Nuka-Cola plant. Now, Ledoux here mentions that now they don't have enough players for an ice hockey team. However, you need 6 players, at least at the bare minimum, on the ice for an ice hockey team, and they only have 3. With Mercer, they would have 4, so they're still short a couple of players. Anyways, Ledoux tells us that his ancestors were ice hockey players, and that he's trying to kind of keep this tradition alive. And he also really wants the Nuka-Cola Crystal formula, and we can sell it to him for some caps. Now, he will initially offer us 250 caps. If you have a high enough speech, we can increase that to 400 caps. So, hey, not bad. After this, the gang will just run off, and no problem. Now, if you don't accept the caps, well, they will attack you, and then you have to kill them. And as you may have seen at the beginning, for whatever reason, when they decided to leave, Ledoux got stuck behind the stairs, and then he was just kind of hanging out here. And we'll talk a little bit more about Ledoux later, but he wouldn't leave this area. Don't know why, don't know if that's a normal glitch, but just thought I'd point it out. Then if we head over to the east, we can find this alley where there's a bunch of raider guard dogs, and also there is a lone raider inside there with a missile launcher, so do be careful in case he starts firing missiles at you. However, since I was so close to him, like proximity-wise, he could not fire those missiles at me, so that made my life a lot easier. He tried to switch to his flamethrower, but that didn't work, and then his body and head went flying. I have no clue why that is. We can also find a bunch of those tricycles here, which were obviously made in the Red Racer Factory. Now, in this alley, we can find a copy of Guns and Bullets, along with some stim packs on this little shelf here. And then there's a refrigerator with some alcohol and stuff in it. We can find some Mentats over here. And then there's a human skull on the table there, not unsettling at all. Now, if we head over near the bed, we can find an average locked gun case along with U.S. Army 30 recipes, which is really good. However, there was nothing in the gun case for me, so I just wasted my time. But anyways, there's also some ammunition boxes and a bed we can sleep in to heal ourselves. And just to the south of the Red Racer Factory, we can find this overturned crate, and inside there is Grognak the Barbarian and a dead Wastelander that had some healing supplies on her. And when I was exploring the west side of the building near the loading dock, something really weird happened. So I have no idea where this missile came from, just really freaking random, but it like flew across the map and blew up next to me, kind of weird. But besides that, there's really nothing of interest around the factory. Now, when I came back, Ledo was still here, and you can actually kill Ledo in order to take his hockey mask, Ledo's hockey mask. And the reason you might want to do this is because it gives you plus 25 action points, which is not half bad if I do say so myself. Also, you can take back the Nuka-Cola Clear formula. Now, once inside the actual Red Racer factory, you're going to find a labyrinth of factory floors. I actually found this place to be quite confusing, but I'll do my best to guide you through it so we can find all of the loot. Now, immediately when you enter, if you go to the right, well, you're not going to find anything worth looting, but you will find a ghoul, so make sure you get rid of him. But I couldn't find anything that was worth my time over here, besides just killing the enemy. Now, back towards the main entrance, if we just go straight, we're going to find a small factory room where there are some tricycles, and here there are 2 barrels. You're going to want to jump up on these barrels. Using the barrel that is standing up, we can jump up here, and you're going to find a toolbox and some other loot, and then we can find a copy of Dean's Electronics and some Mentats. And right next to it, we can find an unusually large teddy bear, but make sure you have no other teddy bears in your inventory, and then you can pick it up. And then this tricycle is also unusually large, and then you can just, well, do nothing with it besides pick it up and not put it in your inventory, like physically pick it up. Now, if we go over here towards these offices, we can find a safe that is like fallen from the ceiling or something. Anyways, we can pick it up, and we can find some caps and pre-war money inside of it. Now, if we keep making our way, we're going to find a fuck ton of ghouls, so do be ready for a pretty long kind of fight, but not too difficult. Now, one thing you'll notice in here is when you kill enemies, their heads fucking blow up, and we'll find out why that is later in the video, but just something you'll notice. You might hear a beeping sound, but it's okay. As we make our way towards the eastern part of the facility, towards the north in one corridor, we can find a bottle cap mine, so you can pick it on up. Now, in this next area, we can find the cafeteria. However, there wasn't a whole lot of interest in this area besides a medical kit, but we can also find some tables and stuff where obviously employees used to eat lunch or maybe dinner if they're working overtime during their shifts. And over here by the refrigerators, we can find the first aid box. But for the time being, this is all the loot we can find on the factory floor. So you're going to make your way upstairs and just start taking out the ghouls. There will be a safe in this office area that you can obviously pick. It's only an easy lock, and we can find some ammunition and pre-war money. But yeah, like I said, you're going to want to go ahead and kill all of the ghouls up on this level. On the second level, the ghouls get a little bit stronger. Also, they are leveled to your level. While I was over here next to this toolbox, I found my worst enemy, a feral ghoul reaver. These things have so much health, and then I fell down to the first level. I had to walk all the way around, come back up, and just find this ghoul beating the shit out of dog meat. I ended up using a sword in order to kill him because I didn't want to waste a ton of ammo, because the Reaver is just a big bullet sponge, really, especially when you have a companion, because it just fights your companion like so. Then we found out dog meat is magical. He teleported up, or just started hovering up into the sky. But after killing the Reaver, we take his 5 bottle caps, and we want to head to the southernmost part of the upper level, where we can find the CEO offices. Now, on the second floor in the CEO offices, you're going to notice something weird. Now we're fighting super mutants. Before we had ghouls, but for whatever reason, the enemy has changed. Their heads will also, well, explode. Now, on the left here, we can find an average locked door, and inside we can find a copy of Nikola Tesla and You. So pretty good. Make sure you pick it up, and there's also some ammunition boxes and grenade boxes for some, ammunition, quite obviously. Then in the room across from us, we can find a, well, relatively empty room with a bunch of equipment, but we can find an average locked terminal. And there is a diary entry which reads, Diary Entry L2. I have used materials from the small explosives cache I found to further safeguard myself from my experiments. I have wired the building to broadcast a signal from this terminal that, in an emergency, will detonate all the chips. I pray that day never comes. So we can learn that somebody is using chips to control the minds of the enemies inside here. And using that terminal, you can actually detonate all the chips. But I didn't want to do that because I didn't know if I would get the XP from killing those enemies. So I continue to make my way through, and eventually come to this room where there's like a double staircase, and here you will find the surgeon. The surgeon is just a normal person who is obviously a mad scientist. On their body, we can find a missile launcher and the surgeon's key. so make sure you pick that up. Also, the surgeon's lab coat will increase your medicine by 10 and your science by 5, not half bad. And then here we can find the surgeon's laboratory, and in here we will find a mutilated body on the table there. We can come over here to the surgeon's table, and there's also a safe that we can unlock. Now over here we can find Stefan, and for whatever reason he's locked in this cage. We have to kill him. Don't really know why. He's a uniquely named ghoul. Now if you have a ghoul mask, the surgeon and Stefan will obviously be friendly to you. But in Stefan's cage we can find a Nuka-Cola Quantum. There's also a dead Wastelander who had some bobby pins and stim packs for me, not bad. Inside of the closet we can find some Kims inside of this wooden box, some Jet and Mentats. Additionally, there is one more safe in this room that we can use the surgeon's key to open. There's also a first aid box that had a stim pack for me. Now you might find some more super mutants down here, but if we go to this other room back on the first level, we can find some ammunition boxes. Also worth noting, in this room we can find the surgeon's notes, and this has 2 diary entries, the first of which reads, Diary entry 64D-A3, mutant chips. I have had to alter the chips for the mutants to account for their greater size. Fortunately, they exhibit a higher intellect than the ghouls and can be controlled to an even greater extent. The enthralled mutants have mentioned legends of even larger mutants, almost twice as big as the ones I've captured. If only I could get my hands on one of those, the experiments, the fun. So obviously the surgeon is talking about the super mutant behemoth right here, and that she wants to experiment on the behemoth. She thinks it would be really fun. Now the next diary entry, 2R-A0, reads, some of my earlier chip prototypes, C6-A and C6-L, have started to malfunction, causing the chips to overheat and eventually detonate the implanted charge. In retaliation, I have upgraded the P7 series and above to counter the malfunction. I have also altered the Y2 series in the mutants as a precaution. Ghouls are easily replaceable. Mutants are not. So obviously we can see that the surgeon had some problems with the earlier chip prototypes, but it seems like she has down her formula. Now as we come back from the CEO offices, we can continue following the path on the second floor, and there will be some glowing ones that we have to take out, ghouls that are higher level. Eventually though, you'll come to the end and you're going to find this room with a toilet. And I just wanted to mention it because in the room with a toilet, that's the best way I can describe it. This room is on the eastern part of the facility, and it's the only room with a toilet. We can jump on top of this roof here, and in between these 2 generators, there will be 2 buckets. The bucket that is facing down, we can pick up, and we can find a copy of a DC Journal of Internal Medicine. Pretty darn good, and definitely something you want to pick up if you're in here. Alright everyone, and that pretty much covers the entirety of the Red Racer Factory, an old factory that used to produce tricycles. Of course, if you've played Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas, you've probably seen tricycles around those games. While we cannot put them in our inventories, we can still kind of play around with them by picking them up physically. And this is one of the many factories that produced those tricycles in the pre-war era. However, now this factory is occupied by the surgeon, who is they're actually a genius, being able to make sure that feral ghouls and super mutants fight for them. Maybe we should harness that ability, if you're an evil genius, that is. Let me know what you guys think of the Red Racer Factory in the comments section below. And also, let me know what you think of sudden death overtime. Do you help them out? Do you kill them? What do you do with them? Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any recommendations or ideas for future videos, future locations, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Here we're going to be checking out Girdershade, which is a very small settlement in the western part of the map. It is home to only 2 residents, Ronald Laren and Sierra Petrovita. However, Sierra is quite famous because of the quest associated with her, the Nuka-Cola Challenge. And during the Nuka-Cola Challenge, we must recover 30 bottles of Nuka-Cola Quantum. Thankfully for us, though, Nuka-Cola Quantum is more common than not, and we can find it scattered in random places throughout the Capital Wasteland. Along my adventures very early on in Fallout 3, I've already found about 50 bottles of Quantum, so, finding 30 is not too challenging, unlike some other like fetch or collection quest in other games. And as Ronald Laren states, Girdershade is at the ass end of the Capital Wasteland. Honestly, it's a miracle that these two can survive all the way out here in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by deadly creatures. And here on the Pip-Boy, you can see the location of Girdershade just west of Joko's Poppin' Gas, southwest of Evergreen Mills, and north of the Dunwich building. Now, the first time you come here and after you speak with Sierra, you'll be confronted by this man, Ronald Laren. And Ronald here has some ulterior motives for living here in Girdershade. You see, he simply just wants to get with Sierra, so after the first time you talk with Sierra about the Nuka-Cola challenge, he will come and approach you and encourage you to give him the Nuka-Cola Quantum, that way he can give it to Sierra, thus increasing his odds of getting with her. And if you pass a speech check, he will give you 80 caps per bottle, unlike Sierra who only gives you 40. But by giving the bottles to Ronald, you will have a negative karma result, whereas giving them to Sierra gives you positive karma. And also you might be familiar with the unmarked quest, Grady's Package. And in this quest, which is found in Grey Ditch inside of Marigold Station, we have to recover some naughty nightwear from a safe. After this, you'll be approached by a man named Lugnut, and you kill him or convince him to let you keep the naughty nightwear. You can return it to Ronald, who is actually the original owner, and he'll give you 200 to 300 caps, depending on your speech. And whatever your decision, Ronald does have a unique weapon on him. You can either pickpocket him, or you can murder him, like I did, and you can get the kneecapper. But I didn't actually want to do that. I just kind of wanted to shoot him because he's kind of a dick. But if you pickpocket him while he's sleeping, maybe we'll try that one more time. If you pickpocket him while he's sleeping, you can take the kneecapper from him, which is a unique sawed-off shotgun. Now, there is a lone Brahmin that also lives here in a pin, but obviously, you know, that's just a Brahmin. Now, if we go over to Sierra's house, you will find that on the outside, we can find a vintage Nuka-Cola sign that is kind of just glowing or, you know, turning on and off, probably kind of bad wiring. And inside of Sierra's house, we have all kinds of Nuka-Cola memorabilia. But once you have all of the Nuka-Cola Quantum, you can go back and give her all of the Quantum that you have. Additionally, she'll give you 40 caps per any other bottles that you bring her, so it's a good way to make some money. However, do be warned, if you bring like 45 bottles of Quantum for your 30, she will take all 45. So make sure if you want to save some Quantum for yourself, or for whatever other reason, make sure you give her exactly 30. Now, after you complete the quest Nuka-Cola Challenge, we can actually do an unmarked quest called Mississippi Quantum Pie, and essentially Sierra, after completing the quest, can cook us some Mississippi Quantum Pie. However, this unmarked quest is actually quite difficult. Not because we need Nuka-Cola Quantum or because we need vodka, because we need one of the rarest items in all of Fallout 3, and that is flour. If you want to actually make this delicacy, then you can check out my video about the Nuka-Cola plant, which is the only location in Fallout 3 with a guaranteed spawn of flour. But after about 30 seconds, Sierra will finish cooking our food, and well, we can set off with our new delicacy. Anyways, after that, I just wanted to kind of explore the surrounding area of Girdershade, because besides that, yeah, it's really quite small. Now, to the south, we can find this, like, burnt-down, destroyed house, but there's nothing of interest inside of it. If we head directly to the west, we can find some collapsed portions of the highway with cars and stuff underneath it. And if we continue going further west, all the way to the border of the map, we can find, well, another collapsed section and also some cars. So there's really nothing out here, just a bunch of empty space. But while I was just kind of looking around and exploring, I was really shocked to have found a lone scavenger and his dog all the way out here. Don't know why they're out here, where he lives exactly, but yeah, he's just kind of out here and you can trade with him. He had some ammunition that I wanted, so hey, it all worked out in the end. And finally, if we go directly to the north, we can find an Enclave outpost, assuming you've completed the Waters of Life quest. And here there's going to be a bunch of Enclave, along with a couple of Death Claws that the Enclave were trying to train or whatever. Kind of a difficult situation, but by using the dart gun, I was able to target their legs, and now the Death Claws are incredibly slow, and they're actually quite easy to kill. Really useful weapon in Fallout 3 is the dart gun. Now, after that, Dogmeat killed the Enclave officer pretty easy, and then I was able to loot their bodies and, find some useful things. So just be aware this is over here. Kind of a difficult fight, though. And also be careful that the Deathclaws don't go to Girdershade, because that could be a massacre. And there you guys have it, the small, humble settlement of Girdershade. This small settlement in the middle of nowhere, well, only has 2 inhabitants, so I don't really know how they survive out here with all of the creatures and possibly raiders, Enclave, but hey, maybe they won't be surviving for much longer. Either way, Sierra is actually pretty infamous within the Fallout universe, and I think her house and stuff kind of inspired, maybe, some of the houses that you see in like Fallout 4, Fallout 76, with so much Nuka-Cola memorabilia. But of course, in real life, Coca-Cola sells all kinds of household items, trinkets, and other stuff that collectors will go absolutely crazy for. So Sierra, in many ways, feels relatable, just in the post-apocalypse. And of course, if you've played Fallout 4, then perhaps you know this is not the last we will see of Sierra, but that is a story for another day. Alright guys, if you have any recommendations or ideas for future videos, future locations, please throw them in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, until next time.
You're listening to the adventures of me, Herbert Daring Dashwood, and my stalwart ghoul manservant Argyle. Today's episode, Between Rockopolis and a Hard Place.
So I know what you're thinking. Otter, how the hell did you get in this situation? Deathclaw Jesus stuck in a rock, Dogmeat going apeshit, and outside of an old, destroyed city. Well, that story all starts with the adventures of Herbert Daring Dashwood and his ghoul manservant, Argyle. This is a popular series on Galaxy News Radio and Fallout 3, and I'm sure many Fallout fans are aware of it. This dramatic radio series, of course, features Herbert Daring Dashwood and Argyle, which is like his sidekick, kind of in the style of a 1950s, 1940s, 1930s radio drama. It's a pretty interesting little adventure as we follow them from their escape at Paradise Falls to Rockopolis and Rockopolis's subsequent destruction. But what some players might not realize is that all of these locations and all of these characters are actually real characters and locations within Fallout 3. Now, some of the details of the story might be a bit exaggerated, but it does give us a pretty good idea of some of the events that led to the destruction of Rockopolis. And with that, that is what led me down this path to find Deathclaw Jesus. So our story will actually begin at Tenpenny Tower, which I already made a long video about. However, in that video, I briefly mentioned Herbert Daring Dashwood, who is a resident within Tenpenny Tower. Assuming you don't side with the ghouls, you can find Herbert Daring Dashwood hanging around his apartment room, or just somewhere along the front lobby in one of the restaurants or something. Now, during the Tenpenny Tower quest, Herbert Daring Dashwood is one of the few that are not hostile to ghouls. And during that quest, before you kill or make your decision, Herbert Daring Dashwood can give you a quest. This unmarked quest, a man-handled manservant, however, will not be able to be completed or even started once you finish the Tenpenny Tower quest. So do be aware, you have to do it during that quest. So with that, we are going to time travel back in time to about February of earlier this year when I was at Shale Bridge. Just wanted to point out a couple of things at Shale Bridge as I reloaded this save. There were 2 Yao Guai and 2 fire ants just fighting Dogmeat. I just never commented on this situation, but just a really wild situation unfolding in front of my eyes that I completely forgot about. Also, the texture on this boulder over here is just really messed up, so I just thought I'd point it out because I failed to mention it before. Now, heading over to Tenpenny Tower, before, obviously, I ever completed the quest here, we can find Roy and the Tenpenny security yelling at each other. By bribing our way in with 100 caps, we can gain entrance to Tenpenny Tower. After that, we once again have to find Herbert Daring Dashwood. This time he was in the bar area of Tenpenny Tower, and if we talk to him, we can get some very interesting dialogue. So let's hear what he has to say.
Maybe you've heard the GNR radio play? The Adventures of Herbert Daring Dashwood? That's about me, you know. Based on my, earlier days. I even had a ghoul manservant. Let me ask you, you ever met a ghoul before?
Sure, I've met some ghouls. They're just people trying to get by.
Ah, you've already learned some wisdom in your youth. Congratulations.
You mentioned something about GNR?
Haven't you ever heard the radio play? The Adventures of Herbert Daring Dashwood? That guy at the radio station put it together a few years ago. He did it in the style of those shows they had before the war. Came out pretty well. And it's all true. Rockopolis, Miss Chase, all of it. Of course, they do portray me as a bit of a chump. Argyle may have saved my hide more than once, but I had my moments. Ah, those were the days.
Tell me about Argyle.
Argyle was my manservant. Ah, but that's really just a fancy word for the guy who saves my sorry skin on a regular occasion. He was a ghoul, you see. Been around since before the war. We met when I stole his girlfriend back in '41. We'd been best friends ever since. We got separated a long time ago and never reunited. If you find Argyle out there somewhere, you be sure and tell me, okay?
And with that, we start the unmarked quest, A Man-Handled Manservant. Now, Rockopolis is an unmarked location located just north of Girdershade and directly west of the Smith Casey garage. So from Girdershade, it's pretty easy to get here. You just head directly north, and I found a random encounter outside of Rockopolis. This woman was murdered by a rad scorpion. Now, regardless of if you started the unmarked quest, you will always find the same loot within inside Rockopolis. However, you cannot get the rewards from the quest from Herbert Daring Dashwood. Now, inside of Rockopolis, well, there really isn't a whole lot. There's a couch, a ham radio, a 10mm. Over here on this table, we can find a note called Rollings, We're Done. This note reads, Rollings, that's the last of these fucking hole dwellers. Jurley wants to shop them around up north. Not sure if they'll make good slaves, since their eyesight is so shitty, but that's not our problem. So gather the boys and saddle up. Next stop, the pit. Of course, this teases the DLC The Pit, and obviously the pit refers to Pittsburgh. Now, as we go further into the cave, we will find a bunch of collapsed rocks and Argyle's dead body. Next to him is the unarmed bobblehead. This is kind of an Easter egg or just reference to Argyle's unarmed skill, since during the Galaxy News Radio series, he often uses Kung Fu to rip people's hearts out of their chests. So either Argyle is a super badass or, it's a little bit exaggerated. Anyways, if we head back to Tenpenny Tower, we once again have to find Herbert Daring Dashwood. Man, this old man can be difficult to find. He was definitely once an adventurer. But this time he was just residing in his apartment. And if we talk to him again, we have this interesting conversation. I found Argyle. I'm afraid he's dead.
Dead? Argyle? You're sure? My God. I always thought he'd outlive me by at least 100 years. Poor bastard. But thank you. Thank you for telling me. At least now I know. At least now the poor guy can catch a breather. I'd like to return your kindness. Here, take this key. It unlocks my safe. Lots of stuff in there I'll never use again. My adventuring days are over.
And after that, we have now completed the quest, A Man-Handled Manservant. And we can go over to Dashwood's safe with the key he just gave us, and we can take everything inside of it, very kind of Herbert Daring Dashwood. And apparently it is stealing. God damn it, Todd. So yeah, this quest is actually glitched. Even after receiving the key, taking anything is considered stealing, and Dashwood will just take it all back. So if you actually want the loot within the safe, you have to make sure you are hidden, but you will still lose karma for stealing, even though Dashwood literally just said we could take anything in the safe. God damn it, Todd. Anyways, whatever, doesn't really matter that much, but I just thought it was a really cool quest that would be very easy to miss. I know I certainly missed this quest, despite the fact that Herbert Daring Dashwood is a beloved character by Fallout fans. Now, when I came back with my actual character, like in the present time, I found 2 Deathclaws killing a Wastelander outside of the Rockopolis. Instead of 2 rad scorpions, it was 2 Deathclaws. One of the Deathclaws, though, here, Deathclaw Jesus, got stuck inside of a rock. And then I lit the Deathclaw on fire, and I think instead of Deathclaw Jesus, it's like Deathclaw Satan. This thing actually looks like a spawn of a demon from hell or something. Anyways, me and Dogmeat killed the Deathclaw that was trapped, and I just wanted to show that yes, you can still enter Rockopolis even without the quest, and you will still find all of the same loot. There is the note about the pit, and then there is Argyle and the bobblehead. So no matter what, make sure you come here. Argyle has 20 caps on him, not bad. Make sure you pick up the bobblehead. Now, as I said earlier, Herbert Daring Dashwood is usually seen fondly by the Fallout community. However, I have some reservations about him. So during his series, Herbert Dashwood and Argyle set out to find the hidden settlement of Rockopolis, a rumored super secret, super secure refugee-free city that was free from chaos of the outside world. Eventually, though, they did find Rockopolis. However, during this entire time, they were being shadowed and followed and even misled by slavers from Paradise Falls, who sought to capture Dashwood for a ransom. Unaware of their pursuers, though, Dashwood and Argyle led them straight to Rockopolis. Then these slavers, following their trail, discovered the location too, and when Dashwood and Argyle left, after killing the leader of Rockopolis, Argyle killed the leader, they were massacred and enslaved by the slavers from Paradise Falls. Again, I just don't know how much of a good person he is. Of course, it wasn't intentional, but he seems to show zero to next to no remorse about the fate that became of Rockopolis. But that's just my 2 cents on Herbert Daring Dashwood. He is kind of a quote-unquote retired player character within the game. So let me know what you guys think of him and Argyle and their adventures. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you have any ideas or recommendations for future videos or future ideas, please post them in the comments section below. Now to end off this video, I will include the rest of the final episode of the adventures of Herbert Daring Dashwood, so we can kind of see the beginning of the end for Rockopolis. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, until next time.
Just ease away, zombie. No funny business. Funny business? Miss Chase, you hurt my feelings. I mean, there ain't nothing funny about the Eagle Claw! Ah! Good God, Argyle! You ripped out her heart! I always knew this broad was heartless. Get it, boss? Heartless? Your kung fu skills may be unparalleled, old chum, but your comic delivery leaves something to be desired. What is the meaning of this? Oh, magnificent King Crag, fearless leader of Rockopolis, it's me, Daring! Daring Dashwood? Herbert Dashwood? I should have known. But who is this? This dead woman? And is that her heart? She's the least of your worries, Craggy. In a few seconds, the slavers are gonna be breaking down your rocky front door. Slavers? You led the slavers here? To Rockopolis? You idiots! Do you realize what you've done? Inspired you to tighten your defenses? Dashwood! Warm welcome's over, boss. Time to scram! Citizens of Rockopolis, destroy these interlopers! This way, Argyle! Into the caves! It's our only chance! They're gaining on us, boss. That cliff up ahead. You think you can jump it? You ain't as spry as you used to be. Child's play, you withering worrywart. What's this? Whoa! Boss, don't worry. I'm coming. Best hurry, old chum. I can't hang on much longer. I think this could be the end of... Be sure and tune in next time for another exciting adventure of me, Herbert Daring Dashwood, and my stalwart ghoul manservant Argyle.
Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out the Yao Guai Tunnels. Now, this location, quite obviously, is inhabited by a large number of Yao Guai. Perhaps we call them a pack, or... Actually, I'm not sure what you call a pack of bears. Apparently, a group of bears is called a sleuth or a sloth. However, a pack is also an acceptable term. So I guess we'll call this a sleuth of Yao Guai. And I just wanted to mention that while I was walking towards the Yao Guai Tunnels, I found a Yao Guai and a Mr. Gutsy fighting each other. The Yao Guai won. And then also in this little nook here, just north of Rockopolis, there is a single tree, just kind of surrounded by rocks. I just thought it was a very interesting kind of site. Don't know if it has any importance or anything, but just thought I'd mention it. But with that, we're going to move on to the Yao Guai Tunnels, which is literally out here in the middle of nowhere. There is hardly anything surrounding it. And there was also a lone death claw just wandering around out here while I was trying to get a scenic shot of nothing. Thankfully, Dogmeat came to my defense, so I was able to deal with it pretty easily. Also, Dogmeat had a kind of funny jumping animation right there. But here's the location of the Yao Guai Tunnels, just north of Rockopolis and west of Charnel House. It's actually directly west of Vault 101, just really far west. Anyways, the Yao Guai Tunnels just kind of sit in this little cave here, and right next to the cave, assuming you've completed the Waters of Life quest, there will be a destroyed Enclave outpost with a ton of dead Enclave, obviously signaling their trouble that they had with the Yao Guai. Now, there is also a random encounter just north of here. I found just a gang of raiders walking around. However, later, a scavenger came walking by armed with a laser Gatling gun. I have no clue if this was part of the random encounter with the raiders or what, but I just thought it was really bizarre to see such a good weapon on a scavenger. So I don't know why he was here, but I thought it was pretty freaking cool, so I bought some of his stuff to give him some money. And with that, we can then make our way into the Yao Guai Tunnels. As you enter, you actually will not be encountered with many enemies, thankfully. There will be a picnic table as soon as we enter, and on this picnic table there is a pre-war book. Also, there are some darts that we can pick up, obviously, for the dart gun. So pretty good, but nothing huge as far as loot. As we continue making our way, we can tell that somebody used to live in these caves. There's all kinds of bookshelves and stuff, but it's obviously all been kind of picked through or destroyed, or something bad obviously happened in here, as everything is just thrown around. In the next room, we can find some more shelves, and there's a lot of ammunition boxes and also some frag mines on the shelf, on the bottom part of the shelf there, as you can see. So make sure you loot through to find whatever loot you want. Now as we move into the next portion, keep your eyes peeled in front of you because a Yao Guai will go running through. This is a scripted event, so you're not supposed to be able to kill that Yao Guai, at least at this moment. Anyways, going straight, not where the Yao Guai went yet, we can find another room that has just been absolutely destroyed. There's a first aid box and just some other random junk on the ground. Take a look, see what you can find, but honestly, there isn't a whole lot in this room. Going back, we're going to follow the path that the Yao Guai ran down, and in the back of the room here, we will actually find said Yao Guai, just kind of chilling around. I used my dart gun to kind of take out his limbs to make him a bit slower. He was attacking a rock pillar for whatever reason. Yeah, fuck that pillar, Mr. Yao Guai. And then, actually, the combat shotgun is really effective against Yao Guai. I never really realized that before, but now is a really good time to learn about that. Then, in here, we can find a very easy footlocker that just had some bottle caps in it, like 40 bottle caps. Not terrible, but not great. And then, as we move into the next part, going on the opposite direction, or the direction the Yao Guai ran from, we will find a Yao Guai push over this wall in another scripted event. On the table here, we can find a bottle of Nuka Cola Quantum. There's also a radio in this room and a bathtub, but yeah, nothing much else of interest besides the Quantum. As we enter the next chamber, we will find two Yao Guai, one up here on this cliff. The other one is just around this pillar, kind of in the center of the room. Not a whole lot, though, in this room either, as far as loot. So once you're in this room, you just want to keep pushing your way to the back. Eventually, you'll find this fence that has been knocked over. There's like a stop sign, and we'll go to the very back where there's another Yao Guai, and we will find a door. This leads us to Yao Guai Den. As we enter, we will find a lot of human skeletons and blood, which is kind of disturbing. Obviously, something very bad has gone down inside of here. In this big room, we have a big central pillar, and there will be several Yao Guai in this room. As you can see, there was two of them there, but really no problem for me and Dogmeat. Now, if you hug the cliff to your right here, I think it's probably the easiest. There's also a Yao Guai up here. His body went absolutely flying into the ceiling as soon as I killed him in VATS. I have no clue why that happened, but highly amusing. but just keep following along and you'll find some dead wastelanders, and eventually you'll find a pond. Go ahead and kill the Yao Guai that is near the pond, and this body started freaking out, like sinking into the floor or the water. Anyways, as we go over this little rock here, we can find the sneak bobblehead. Probably the main reason people would ever come to this location, because it boosts your sneak by 10 points. Pretty darn good. Back in the pond, we can find a dead settler. And on this dead settler, we can find the Yao Guai Den note, which kind of lets us know what happened here. The note reads, "Non needs to cut it with the crap stories about beasts lurking in the depths of the cave. Nonsense is scaring the kids. I have set up makeshift barriers until we have time to make permanent ones. The barriers are there more for my own sanity than anything. We have been in this cave for a month now, and we have finally been able to get everything settled. It's nice to be inside and not have to worry about raiding parties overrunning our camp at night. We're safe here, and that's all that matters at the moment." So we can see that this cave was once home to a band of settlers, but obviously the rumors about beasts lurking within the caves were actually correct, because we have a fuck ton of Yao Guai living in here with those poor people, and obviously all of those poor people were, well, killed. As we make our way further into the den, we'll find another Yao Guai, along with tons of bone from what appear to be Brahmin. So just take out the Yao Guai pretty easy. There is unfortunately no unique Yao Guai within the caves. Then as we come to this door, we'll enter the room where we encountered the first Yao Guai, the one we saw running across like the hallway. And then we can find a copy of Grognak the Barbarian next to this dead raider. And with that, we have completed the Yao Guai Tunnels. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, in the Yao Guai Den, where we found the Yao Guai Den note on the dead settler, apparently you can hear a Yao Guai breathing in the eastern part of the room. However, I went there and I turned up like my special effects audio and stuff, and I could not hear the breathing noise, but it is on the wiki, so I'm sure it is accurate. So if you're curious, you can go take a look for yourself. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you have any ideas or recommendations for future videos, future locations, please drop them in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Agatha's house, which is an important but small location within the Capital Wasteland, but it's important enough to have a trade caravan route to here, despite the fact it has a population of 1, our good old friendly grandma, Agatha. Now, this location was recommended to me by Blackbird's Fly. I do want to apologize for taking so long to get here. I just kind of got busy exploring the western part of the map, but we've almost finished that part of the map, so we can start making our way eastward. It's also a good time to visit Vault 92, which will be in a future episode, but we've already completed it, so hopefully it'll be out soon. So without further ado, let's jump into Agatha's house. Now, Agatha's house is kind of located near the beginning of the game, just northeast of Vault 101, west of Scrapyard, and southwest of Minefield. Now, it can be a little difficult to reach, but if you approach from the east, the western entrance of the actual area, it's pretty easy. You're going to find this kind of small canyon and a bridge over it, and then you just walk through the cliffs here. You'll see a white picket fence and a radio mast, and then here we are at Agatha's house. Outside, there's some random metal boxes and stuff. I actually found some decent loot in this one, finding some bobby pins, always useful. And then there's also a damaged garden gnome outside. Inside, we will find Agatha. This is very sweet old lady who loves music. She is a violinist. However, she only has a home-built, kind of custom-made, jerry-rigged violin that is not so good or suitable for playing. Her dream is to play a real violin. And as you converse with her, you'll learn that, well, there's probably no real violins left in the world. Well, except for the fact that she knows there might be one. And this one is located in Vault 92. And she knows this because her great-great-grandmother was apparently a resident of Vault 92. But how she knows this, or how her grandmother escaped, well, we don't really know, because what transpired in Vault 92 is quite horrific. And as far as we know, there were no survivors, but perhaps there was a few, because, well, Agatha obviously has relatives that live there. But she wants us to go to Vault 92 to locate a Stradivarius violin, which are real violins in real life, and they are extremely valuable, and I mean extremely. While the price for a Stradivarius violin varies significantly depending on historical significance and condition, the record is $23 million, and the specific one in-game, the Swal Stradivarius violin, is estimated to be worth between $12 and $18 million. Absolutely insane. Anyway, she doesn't know where Vault 92 is located, west of Old Only, but anyways, we can either go to the Vault Tech HQ in Washington, D.C., or we'll just make our way to Vault 92. So for a story that is definitely a video for a different day, we'll just skip to the room which has the Swal Stradivarius violin just sitting here on this table inside of the recording room. Heading back to Agatha, we can talk to her and give her back, or, well, not give her back, but pretty much just give her the violin. And in return, we get a box of her husband's old belongings. Unfortunately, her husband died, but he's the one that built this house out here in the middle of the wasteland. Kind of a dangerous area, or a dangerous place for an old woman, but she survived. She has caravans that come visit her, and the radio mast, which her husband built, will now be used to broadcast sweet violin music across the wasteland. So you get a small benefit by being able to listen to a Stradivarius violin whenever your heart feels like it. Now, kind of an optional objective, an unmarked quest, is if we find sheet music books, we can give them to Agatha. However, we can only give her one, and they are located in several places, such as Arlington Library, the National Archives, Springvale School, the Statesman Hotel, Roosevelt Academy, and of course, Vault 92. I mean, it was a vault for music, so of course, they would have some sheet music. Now, when you give her the sheet music, be careful what you select, because the first option, no, you don't have to give me anything, while very nice and it'll definitely give you some good karma, actually does not give you the best reward. It'll just give you a thank you, and really that is it. So I gave her that the first time, and then I just took all of her husband's belongings for completing the quest, Agatha's Song, which is getting the violin. But I reloaded because I really wanted the other possession, so we have to choose the middle one. Sure, I'll take whatever you can afford, which is kind of the neutral karma option. While we will not receive positive karma, we won't lose karma either, and we get the epic weapon, Blackhawk, which was her husband's scoped 44 Magnum, which is one of my favorite weapons in the entire game. So I definitely wanted to pick this up, even if it is the neutral karma option, and I'm going for a good karma playthrough, and it's alright, there's plenty of good karma to get in this game. But yes, it's also worth mentioning that in her husband's old ammunition box, there is some good ammunition, including a mini nuke, so either way, you would definitely want to pick up the loot in that box. Now, alternatively, if you're just kind of a mean person, you can actually lie to Agatha and tell her the violin was not in Vault 92, and then you can sell it to Abraham Washington in Rivet City, or as they're called, in the Underworld. Now, funny enough, if you want to be very evil, you can sell it to them, steal it back, and then give it back to Agatha, which would just be kind of crazy, but if you want to maximize your profit, there's one way to do it. Alright, and I think that pretty much sums up Agatha's house. It is actually one of my favorite quests in all of Fallout 3. It is a really fun quest that kind of leads you around the Capital Wasteland, going into Washington, D.C. for the Vault Tech headquarters, and then making your way up north near Old Olney, which is a Deathclaw sanctuary, and then going to Vault 92. It's a lot of fun, and finding a Stradivarius violin as somebody who loves history is just a really cool quest. Now, I do, again, want to apologize to Blackbird's Fly for having to wait so long for this video after he requested it. Thank you for leaving the request. I do have a book of all of the requests I have received. Sometimes I get busy or I'm just exploring a certain part of the map, so that becomes my focus. I know I have a lot of requests still that I need to fulfill. Don't worry, if you made a request, I will get to it, and I will thank you for making the request. Just sometimes it takes a little bit of time. If you leave a comment, also, that can help, just to let me know that you're still watching and that you still want that video so I can make it more promptly. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you have any ideas, locations for future videos, please post them in the comment section below. And, as always, until next time. if you are ever at Willem's Wharf, you're going to notice that there is a sewer pipe that leads to Hubris Comics utility tunnels. And if you go inside, you will find a very confusing labyrinth of tunnels. These tunnels kind of span in each direction, and it is infested with feral ghouls. Combined with high amounts of radiation in the tunnels and just an overall feeling of claustrophobia, this place is, well, kind of hell. But it's not too difficult as far as enemies, and well, Dogmeat is just a one-man wrecking machine, just absolutely destroying the ghouls in this room. And this first room that we enter is important because we can find, well, one of the few unique items in the utility tunnels. Back here near this control panel, there's a desk. On top of the desk, we can find a copy of Dean's Electronics. For the rest of the utility tunnels, I'll just fast forward it because it's just a confusing array of tunnels. You want to make your way through. There was one feral ghoul reaver for me, which is just a big bullet sponge that can deal a moderate amount of damage, but not too difficult. Now, depending on which way you take in the tunnels, you can find two entrances to Hubris Comics, and the one I took just kind of takes us to the middle of the facility, which is fine for the sake of the video. We will just go through either way, it doesn't really matter. We come into this large room where the floor is clearly deteriorating, as about half of it has collapsed into the section below, and then there's a ton of desks and typewriters. Obviously, this is the room where they were writing the comics, writing out the stories, and stuff like that. Down below, there was a good amount of feral ghouls. Dogmeat jumped down there and destroyed them, and I just kind of was a coward and shot them from above. But we get a pretty cool sight in this room of all of the typewriters and the sun coming through as the building slowly deteriorates. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. A little bit of an unorthodox intro today, because the beginning of this video, or the entrance to the utility tunnels, always confused me as a kid, because as I said earlier in the video, the entrance to the utility tunnels is near Wilhelm's Wharf. However, Hubris Comics is way down south near the Citadel, which is just kind of a big distance to travel, but inside the utility tunnels, it doesn't really feel that far, not even close to it, actually. So I just thought it was kind of weird as a kid, and I still find it to be kind of amusing. Now, Hubris Comics is a location, obviously, where they printed several famous comics and kind of cartoons that were popular in the pre-war era, perhaps most notable, Grognak the Barbarian, a comic book that we can still find to this day littered across the Capital Wasteland. Now, the alternative method to get here would be to go through the Falls Church metro system, and then you can pop right out next to Hubris Comics, but since we're already inside, we don't have to worry about that. But if you are curious as to the location, here it is on the Pip-Boy, just west of the Citadel, south of Falls Church, and east of the Nuka-Cola factory. Now, going back inside of the typing room downstairs, we can find a ton of books and bookshelves, but despite that, there's actually nothing of interest down here as far as loot. There's some bathrooms, a utility closet, but there's just nothing of interest. So we're going to head over to the southern side of the building, where we can find beta testing, and inside of here, we can find a terminal, and on this terminal, we can find the Reign of Greylock beta, which is a mini text adventure game, somewhat similar to games such as the Zork series, Planetfall, and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Now, this little game is kind of fun to play, and there's actually a way to win the game, so you can win it. Unfortunately, we don't get an reward for winning the game. It just says, like, thank you for playing, which is, I guess, kind of actually like real life, which is, yeah, anyways. Wish we got a real reward in Fallout 3. Anyways, this game is kind of similar maybe to the Elder Scrolls or something, like a very, very primitive version of the Elder Scrolls. Now, in order to beat the game, the first thing you want to do is go north. Then you want to observe the mountainside, and then you will spot a kind of sparkling glint between the rocks. Then you want to investigate the glistening object, and then you will pick up a rough gemstone. From here, you want to go back to the main area. You want to go to the west, to the swamp, and you want to look around the swamp. Here you will find a wizard. We want to then talk to the wizard, and the wizard will then split the gemstone in half. And then from here, we want to go back to the main area, and we want to go to the south, and we want to look around the town. Then we want to speak with the blacksmith in order to upgrade our sword, and then we want to talk with the priest. After we talk with the priest, we will learn of a chapel to the east, so we want to go back to the main area and then go back to the east, and then we want to look around the chapel. At the chapel, we will find a zombie, so using our newly acquired sword, we want to use that against the zombie in order to kill the zombie. Then we want to examine the zombie's grave, and then we will take the zombie's head. We want to go back to the main area, go south again, back to the town, bring the zombie's head to the priest, and then go back to the chapel because the priest has exchanged the zombie head for the key to the chapel. So go back to the chapel, open up the chapel by looking around the chapel, and then we want to examine the chapel. Wow, lots of chapels, huh? Anyways, we will fill our flask with holy water, and then after that we want to go to the north, all the way to the mountain where Greylock is, this evil wizard that we want to kill. Then we want to use our magical sword on Greylock, and Greylock will die, thus completing our adventure. And if you read the text, his death is actually pretty freaking cool. But then we get the end, and thanks for playing. Now, this was just a beta, but obviously a very early edition of a video game in the Fallout universe. After that, we can click victory, game over, and it'll kick us out of the terminal. If we try to re-enter the terminal, we can just restart the game all over again. Now, outside beta testing, we can find this snack machine that has a stim pack in it, which is not half bad. Then, as we make our way towards the entrance, there is a rigged crib just right there. I completely missed it. I thought the baby crying was coming from the crib in front of me, and I backed right up into the rigged crib. Anyways, thankfully, that didn't hurt me at all, somehow, and I made my way to the entrance of Hubris Comics. We can see Hubris Comics written on the wall, and we can head outside. Be careful, because depending on your karma, you'll be attacked by Talon Company mercs or regulators. And here, there are also a fucking ton of super mutants, and a crazy freaking firefight broke out. First, I shot Dogme, and Dogme got, like, pissed off at me, but then he turned around and actually started fighting the right people, and then a huge gang of super mutants just showed up, and I kind of actually feel bad for this Talon Company merc. He got his day absolutely wrecked by, like, a half dozen super mutants. So after this, I pulled out my missile launcher in order to thin out the herd of super mutants, just launching tons of missiles into their group, and that did a good job at thinning them down and removing a lot of their health. And then I used a laser rifle to finish them off from there. After that, we can do some looting and get some pretty awesome loot, like 5.56mm rounds. Also a ton of Chinese assault rifles. If you're going to use that, you can fix some up and sell them later in the game. As far as loot, in this Pulaski Preservation Shelter, if you open it up, we can find a copy of Dean's Electronics on the ground. Then there's this huge statue of a man jumping through or walking through a hoop. And down below, we can see the entirety of the Mason District. Now, I don't know what this little square is called, but for the sake of the video, I'm just going to call it Mason Square. Now, in the middle of Mason Square, there's a wasteland captive, which we can save. This is where the super mutants normally hang out, but because there were Talon Company mercs at Hubris Comics, they made their way up there for a pretty freaking insane and awesome and hilarious firefight. If we go to the southwest of Mason Square, we can find a little, like, sniper post up here. There's a skeleton. We can find a copy of Guns and Bullets, a stim pack, and then some 5.56 ammunition and 10mm rounds, along with some frag grenades. Back in the middle of the Mason Square, we can find this kind of, like, wagon or train car that has some frag grenades, a lot of 5.56 rounds, and 3 Chinese assault rifles. So a pretty darn good find. Again, if you want to repair some of those rifles, you can use one for yourself. Now you have a lot of ammunition, and you can also sell a few later in the game. Back inside Hubris Comics, above the rigged terminal, we can find a copy of Tales of a Jerktown Junkie Vendor. Then over along this bookshelf, we can find a pre-war book, so pretty darn good. And if we go over to this door and kind of go down this staircase here, we can find the other entrance to the Hubris Comics utility tunnels. Like I said, there's 2 entrances into the Hubris Comics. Now, heading back to the western part of Hubris Comics, eventually you'll find this long hallway where if you go down it, you will be pelted by tons of baseballs. You have these baseball pitching machines that just hurtle like a dozen or so baseballs at you. It's kind of crazy. Anyways, we'll find an elevator to the printing room of Hubris Comics, and in here we will find a firefight taking place between, well, ghouls and Mad Johnny West, who's just kind of a crazy survivor in the post-apocalypse, who has taken refuge in this facility and is using 2 Mark V turrets to help him kill these ghouls and to help him try to kill you. I highly recommend using a long-range rifle, like I'm using the Victory rifle here, a sniper rifle, in order to kill him. It made it a lot easier, and then taking out his turrets after that. Now, there is a terminal in his, back room there that says it's a turret control terminal. However, it does not have any impact on the turrets in the room. Now, if we come over to the center area of the printing room, we can find the printing terminal, where we can turn on the printing press. However, upon turning it on, the machine just completely breaks down. Now, a fun fact, if you ever visit Our Lady of Hope Hospital, a terminal entry there mentions that a certain employee here, Richard Maynard Watson, got hurt because of one of the printing press machines malfunctioning, spraying hot steam and caustic chemicals into his face and hands, thereby causing severe burns and even nerve damage, putting him in the hospital. However, the steam coming from the machines now seemed to have no effect on the player character, despite the fact that apparently this gas is poisonous. Now, back upstairs, if we make our way to the eastern part of the second floor, we can find a staircase that takes us downstairs. If you look off in the distance, you will see 2 ghouls running towards pitching machines, and the ghouls were just getting absolutely wrecked by those pitching machines, which I think is pretty freaking funny. We can find this kind of small cubicle, and in here we can find a bookshelf that has a pre-war book on it. And then there's also a first aid kit with some healing items and another first aid box with a bobby pin and some more healing items. We can also find another publishing control terminal that will unlock the door leading to Mad Johnny West. And this ghoul here was just Slav squatting in front of the door for whatever reason. I don't really know what he was trying to do there. Anyways, in the room we can find a Nuka-Cola Quantum on this desk, along with some darts, and then next to it we can find a copy of Grognak the Barbarian. There is the worthless turret control terminal that I mentioned earlier, and then we will loot Johnny's body for some good loot, like a minigun, some ammunition, and also there is a lot of ammunition boxes here, filled with a lot of ammunition. So all in all, I have to say, as far as Hubris Comics, there's a ton of ammunition. Now also throughout the facility, we can find these posters of the various comic series and characters owned by Hubris Comics, like Captain Cosmos and Django the Monkey. Now, before ending the video, there is one terminal entry of note that I think is kind of funny, and it is important to the story. If we go to the entrance and we click on the letters to the editor entry, it reads, Requiem for an Antagonist. Grognak the Barbarian is an excellent comic for many reasons, but one of the most widely respected ones is the depth of its villains, from the cold-blooded manipulations of the man Saurian to the love-hate romance with Fim Ra. The stories of Grognak's enemies are every bit as fascinating as his own tales. But for my money, no tale is more tragic and more fascinating than that of the Ant-Agonizer. While never developed as fully as major villains like Skullpocalypse or Master Donald, the portrait of the orphan girl raised by ants and instilled with a bitter hatred of humanity has tremendous potential for reader connection and possible redemption. However, in Grognak and the Ants of Agony, Mr. Neptura threw away all of that, potentially by simply treating the Antagonizer as a two-dimensional villain with a futile and pointless grudge against mankind. His writing replaced her subtle undertones of lost humanity and tragically lost innocent with the worst sort of mustache-twirling, cliched dialogue. It was an offense to a deep and tragic character. How a hack like that continues to find work in comics is beyond my comprehension. Hubris Comics should fire him and return the series to the capable hands of Mr. Morales. Until that time, I refuse to buy another comic from what used to be my favorite publisher, Obsessed in Oakmont. So as we can see, Obsessed in Oakmont, well, was not happy with the result of the Ant-Agonizer. But of course, if you've played Fallout 3 before, you know that the Ant-Agonizer is an actual character within Fallout 3. However, that is a story for another day. But within Hubris Comics, we can get an idea of the origin for the Ant-Agonizer. And there you guys have it, Hubris Comics from Fallout 3. Perhaps one of my low-key, kind of more underrated locations within Fallout 3, just because it's a really cool place to visit, and its connection to Wilhelm's Wharf is just really kind of awkward but funny, at least to me. And we can also find a ton of skill books within to upgrade our skills. And also the character here, Mad Johnny West, is just kind of an interesting villain that has gone crazy. Kind of feel bad for him, but hey, not much else we can do. Alright guys, what do you guys think of Hubris Comics from Fallout 3? Do you guys ever go here? What do you guys think of the utility tunnels? Is it a little bit awkward, or am I just crazy? Let me know in the comments below. If you guys have any recommendations or ideas for future locations, future videos, please post them in the comments section below. I always enjoy reading your guys' comments and what you guys have to say. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out the Mason District along with the flooded metro. Now this location can be a little bit difficult to access as it's not just in the open world. There are 3 ways to access it. We can access it through the flooded metro, which we will show in this video. Additionally, you can come through Falls Church Metro, or you can use the Hubris Comics utility tunnels, which we will also show in this video. I prefer the Hubris utility tunnel simply because it is kind of far away and it allows us to get to this location relatively quickly, at least for the distance that we cover, well, really fast, as you will see. So let's waste no more time and let's jump into the Mason District. So we'll be starting our journey up here by Wilhelm's Wharf, which is way up here, kind of by the Super Duper Mart, and just east of Vault 101 and Megaton. And we'll be making our way all the way down south near Falls Church, and there's Mason District and Flooded Metro on the world map. Again, we're covering a lot of land, or a lot of distance, relatively quickly, thanks to metros and service tunnels. So right here, just north of the Wilhelm's Wharf, we will find the utility tunnels, just this kind of sewer pipe. We'll make our way through Hubris Comics all the way to the entrance of Hubris Comics, and we will come outside in the Mason District. Now, immediately, I was attacked by Talon Company mercs. If you have evil karma, they'll probably be regulators. Additionally, there is a huge gang of super mutants here. So this poor Talon Company merc over here got absolutely destroyed by the super mutants, which I just thought was kind of funny. But I did want to mention that if you go through the utility tunnels, obviously I went really fast, and that's because I talked about it in my previous video about Hubris Comics. So if you want a more detailed guide about how to navigate the tunnels, please check out that video. The tunnels, while claustrophobic and a little bit confusing, are pretty straightforward. Just keep going straight, don't go backwards, and eventually you will find Hubris Comics, and then you can make your way here to the Mason District coming out of Hubris Comics. So I dealt with the super mutants by using a missile launcher. There were 2 super mutant masters along with a lot of brutes and about a half dozen of them, but using the missile launcher I was able to thin them out pretty easily, and then I could loot all of the Talon Company mercs and super mutants. Now, immediately outside of Hubris Comics, we have this Pulaski Protection Shelter, and inside of it we can find a copy of Dean's Electronics along with some other random junk. We also have a statue here of this man walking through a hoop, marking Hubris Comics. Down below we have the Mason District, which features a huge playground. Now this is where the super mutants normally hang out, and in the middle we can find some shopping carts and an unfortunate captive who, of course, we will help because we're going for a good karma playthrough. I did want to mention that the Mason District is based on the real-life Mason District of the same name, located in Fairfax County, Virginia. And the Mason District in real life even has a park with a complete playground, very similar to the one we can find in-game. Of course, the one in-game, though, is flooded and irradiated now, so, you know, it's not as nice as the one in real life, well, at least anymore. Now, also towards the middle of the park, we can find this kind of wagon or cart that has a bunch of ammunition boxes filled with 5mm rounds and 5.56mm rounds, along with several Chinese assault rifles. For whatever reason, all of the super mutants here are equipped with Chinese assault rifles, so it's a good place to pick some up, repair them, and then sell them later, or to use in your own arsenal. Now, if we head over to the northeastern part of the Mason District of this small park, we can find a ton of irradiated barrels, Don't know if this was put here pre-war or if it was brought here by super mutants or something. Who knows, but yeah, it's just sitting there next to a children's playground, so great location. Over here on the eastern part, we can find this kind of like parking lot that has tires and stuff inside of it. Not really sure what it would have been used for, actually, maybe a dumping ground or something, who knows. But if we head on over to the southwestern corner of the Mason District of this park, we can find an abandoned building, very similar to many buildings you might find in Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3. Up top, we can find a copy of Guns and Bullets and a ton of ammunition boxes, along with a skeleton that appears to have been shooting outside of this window. Who knows what happened to this poor skeleton, if it was a pre-war incident or more likely after the Great War. Also, next to that abandoned building, we can kind of find this corner with all kinds of like liquor, empty milk bottles. We also have some chems and stuff. Don't know if this would have been an old pre-war bar or cafe of some sort. But yeah, I just thought I'd point it out because I thought it was kind of cool. But besides that, in this abandoned building, there isn't a whole lot, but there is a sniper rifle next to the skeleton, so you can always pick that up if you want. I used it to repair my victory rifle, so yeah, pretty good. So that pretty much covers the Mason District North, so now we're going to head to the Mason District South. Now, the northern part of the Mason District is unmarked. It is only marked by the Hubris Comics map marker. Now, as we make our way south, we can find this huge billboard that has kind of fallen over that says Nuka break, kind of like need a break. Now, there is a super mutant that was over here, just a lone super mutant, so pretty easy to kill. Now, there might be just some stragglers left over, not sure really, but I did find another super mutant at the top of this building, or not the top really, just the second floor. Again, pretty easy to kill when they are by themselves, not in a huge pack. Now, over here, we have an unknown, unnamed metro, but we cannot access it or have any clue where it actually goes because the entrance is pretty much caved in and it's inaccessible. Now, on the second floor of this kind of destroyed building, we can find 2 ammunition boxes, and this is the building where that super mutant was shooting us from. Couldn't find his body, though, so don't really know what happened to him. Completely disintegrated. But from up here, we can get a pretty good view of Mason District South, which just features these streets kind of convening together. And as we get towards the flooded metro, we can just find a ton of rad roaches and a ton of these radioactive barrels. Again, not sure how these barrels got here. Don't know if the super mutants brought them here or something, but hey, who cares? But as we make our way towards the flooded metro, we can find like a bus stop, some old like payphones and stuff like that, and some Vault Tech propaganda. Pretty cool. Then we'll go inside the flooded metro, and inside of here we can find a like snack machine, which is not really why we're in here, but we can find some pretty darn good loot in here. But this place might be a little bit confusing. However, I don't think it's too bad. At least I don't think it's as bad as like the Hubris Comics utility tunnels. Now, kill the Mirelurks in here. There's going to be a lot. And as you make your way in, eventually you're going to find a very large central staircase. There's going to be a lot of Mirelurks on this staircase, so just kind of eliminate them as you make your way down. Pretty sure that they are all leveled because I had some Mirelurk Kings as I made my way down. At the time of making this, I was a level 21/level 22. Having Dogmeat with me was a huge help, especially with dealing with the Mirelurk Hunters. But basically, this staircase has several floors. On the top floor, well, that's where we came in. On the next floor, there is nothing. On the third to bottom floor, we find 2 doors. These doors are where we will go next. And on the very bottom floor, we just find a radioactive pond. There's really no point in going down here unless, well, you're trying to become a ghoul or you're just suicidal. But hey, you know, to each their own. Now, back on that third to bottom floor, we can find an open door and a closed door. I recommend going through the closed door first because this leads us to a dead end, but we can find a unique weapon in the very back here. You're going to find this room, and there's going to be a rigged shotgun. On top of this tool cabinet, there's a Nuka-Cola Quantum, so make sure you pick that up. Then you can look at the combat shotgun angrily for shooting you in the abdomen. And in the very back of this room, we can find a dead Wastelander, probably killed by Mirelurks. And then there's a really flooded portion, but this actually doesn't really go anywhere. Kind of just pointless. You can drink the water if you have a death wish. But heading back up, we can find on this barrel the Shocker, which is a unique power fist. And there's also a note that comes with it. And this note gives us a bit of description of what the Shocker is. It reads, "Dear consumer, thank you for your participation in the exciting Shocker Glove pilot program. You're receiving a prototype FSG version 118-B model of the Shocker Glove. Please reference this prototype number in any future correspondence. We encourage you to make this prototype a part of your daily life and look forward to your valuable feedback. Thanks from all of us at the Shocker Glove R&D team. P.S. Shocker Glove prototypes are not for use in water, public, near small children, or domesticated animals. This is not a kitchen appliance and should not be used near uncooked food. Use of the Shocker Glove prototype constitutes a binding agreement to hold manufacturer harmless for any and all legal purposes. During prolonged use, severe electronic burns may occur. Do not look directly at the Shocker Glove while operating. Some prototype models may have sensitive to certain radio frequencies during use. If you suspect radio interference, please submit a malfunction report listening FCC broadcast frequencies in the operation at the time, and report to the nearest emergency medical facility in your area. So the Shocker Glove was actually a consumer product designed to be, well, used against robots. So I guess if people were afraid of robots, they could buy the Shocker Glove. Now, heading back to that main room, to the third to bottom floor, we will now proceed through the door that was already open. And this will take us down a long tunnel, just filled with Mirelurks, so be ready for a bit of a fight. But yeah, not too bad, especially if you have a companion with you, like I had Dog Meat. Now, I found a ton of Mirelurk Kings in this next room, so just be aware if you're a higher level, you might have a kind of a tough fight. Although, personally, I think Mirelurk Hunters are much more difficult than actual Mirelurk Kings. At least this is my opinion. Maybe the Kings do more damage, but the Hunters have a lot more health. So having Dog Meat to distract them while I just shoot, and shoot some more is really helpful. Now, eventually you enter this large room with a staircase, and you can keep proceeding forward, in which case you are going to find a lot of Mirelurk eggs, a Mirelurk King, or perhaps a lower level Mirelurk, and that's pretty much about it. This is a dead end, and there's really no loot of use in this room. Just get some free radiation poisoning. There is a first aid box that had some rataways, so I mean, I guess it was all worth it. But as I turned around here, I got the shit scared out of me by this Mirelurk King. I don't know why it scared me so much, but it just did. And I have no clue where he came from, why Dog Meat was just like hanging out with him. But hey, whatever. It's just classic Fallout shenanigans. Now, eventually I decided to try out the Shocker. And yeah, the Shocker is pretty worthless against Mirelurks, so would not recommend. You might even electrocute yourself, but I mean, that's not really possible, but I'd like to imagine it's possible. But these Mirelurks, well, they didn't really care for my glove. It's supposed to be used against robots, so, you know, we'll try that at a later date in Fallout 3. But for now, I just switched to my Blackhawk, my special scoped 44, and this gun, especially if you can get some headshots on those Mirelurks, is really effective. Now, up in this upper area, we can find a whole lot of nothing, just kind of empty lockers. There is a rataway in that locker, that's nice. And you can also find some ammunition and stuff just kind of randomly strewn about, but for the most part, there isn't a whole lot. Now, as we make our way towards the other entrance of the flooded metro, we will find this kind of upstairs room. There's some lockers and stuff. And in the western corner of this room, we will find a generator. If you jump behind or just go behind the generator, you're going to find a skeleton, a ton of blood, a scoped 44. The skeleton's going to freak the fuck out when you loot it. And there's also a copy of Guns and Bullets. So definitely pick up that skill magazine. Now, as we make our way out of this room back into a chain of tunnels, we'll be greeted with another, well, Mirelurk. Who would have guessed? Now, as we continue making our way, eventually we will find a just normal door, which opens up into a metro station tunnel. And then we have that kind of classic Fallout 3 exit out of the metro. And this will take us to the flooded metro entrance, which is on the far southern part of the map. We just have a really kind of nice, like, beautiful entrance here. Now, up here we got another one of these Powalski preservation shelters. And inside, apparently, this is a Chinese spy, according to Todd Howard. There's also a Chinese training ops manual next to her. But this area was actually shown off at E3 in 2008. Wow, that was a long time ago. At a hands-on of Fallout 3, in which Todd Howard was playing and showing off the game, well, to G4 and E3. Wow, what a long time ago. Anyways, Todd Howard had this to say.
Quick. And it's optional, so you can play it like a first-person shooter, or you can do that. This is one of these protection pods you can get in and kind of avoid things. There are skill books you can find. Like
it didn't work for that guy, apparently.
Chinese, this is a Chinese commando, so I'm finding stuff in there, and you can actually...
Anyways, just a kind of cool bit of Fallout history and the ever so wonderful Todd Howard. Now, along the highway next to the metro here, we can find a ton of cars and trucks, obviously long abandoned. And here we can find the flooded Metro Raider camp, and as the name would suggest, it is a camp full of raiders right next to the flooded Metro. Now, these raiders are pretty easy to kill, and me and Dogmeat made quick work of them. However, there was one raider with a missile launcher who was kind of annoying, but yeah, we were able to kill her. But the thing to be the most careful of in this area is way off in the distance. You can find this sentry or Mark V turret that will be shooting you from really far away. I kind of had difficulty figuring out where it was, but using VATS, I was able to locate. I couldn't really tell just because of it's attached to a cage. For a second, I actually thought it was on the highway, but that would be ridiculously far away. Anyways, if we go over that raider with the missile launcher was, we can obviously take the missiles off the raider, and next to this bed, we can find a copy of Tumblers Today, along with some ammunition boxes. Now, if we head to the front of the raider camp, we can find all of these goodies and stuff on this counter. It appears to be some kind of bar. There is a bottle of Nuka Cola Quantum, and also a copy of Pugilism Illustrated on the little bar there. And also there's like a cash register and stuff like that, pretty cool. And finally, there is a raider on this kind of pedestrian bridge that we can just kill. Alright everyone, and there you have it, the Mason District and the flooded Metro. Now this video was kind of a prototype for how I'm going to approach several of the locations on the eastern part of the map. Obviously, the actual city of Washington, D.C. is highly divided and highly fragmented by the metro system, so there's a lot of tunnels and stuff to get to different parts of the map. I'm just trying to figure out the best ways to show off the tunnels and the locations all at the same time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any feedback, please post it in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you have any ideas or recommendations for future videos or future locations, please post them in the comments section below. And, as always, until next time. Assuming you have downloaded Operation Anchorage and you listen to the Outcast distress signal, eventually you will hear this message.
This is Defender Morrill. Any outcasts listening on this frequency, report to Sector 7B, Bailey's Crossroads. This is a high priority message. Backup is needed at our location. Any personnel listening on this frequency, please report at once.
And after receiving this radio signal, it will start the quest aiding the Outcast, which is necessary to complete in order to find the Outcast outpost and to obviously start the DLC, Operation Anchorage. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Bailey's Crossroads and enter the Outcast outpost, which is located within Bailey's Crossroads. Now, in order to find Bailey's Crossroads, you'll probably want to head to the Red Racer Tricycle Factory, which is located in the southern part of the map. Also, the quest marker will lead you straight here. There is a small door in the side of the wall, as you can see here, that is just near Red Racer Factory. If we go in through here, we will discover Bailey's Crossroads Metro, and when we come out the other side, we will discover the actual location on the world map. Now, while Bailey's Crossroads was only added after the release of Operation Anchorage, it is worth noting that it is a real location in real life located in roughly the same area. Bailey's Crossroads, Virginia is an actual suburb of Washington, D.C. It is known for large groups of apartment buildings, which in-game is also true, and also it is named after Hatchaliah Bailey, the ancestor of James Anthony Bailey of Barnum and Bailey's Circus, one of the largest and most successful circuses in the United States. Founded in 1871, it continues to this day. So that is where it gets its name from. And as I said at the beginning of the video, this door will take us into Bailey's Crossroads Tunnel. Now, inside of this metro system, we will find a few feral ghouls, but besides that, it's a pretty straightforward, just copy and paste, typical Fallout 3 metro. It's just a straight path, straight through, and it's pretty short compared to some of the other metros that we can find within the game. Now, there will be a few ghouls, as you can see this glowing one with his head getting blown off. There's a small waiting area that had a lockpick for me and some whiskey. And then if we go down to the bottom part, to the train platform, we can find a bunch of glowing mushrooms. And then in a toilet, well, there's a footlocker here, but in a toilet we could find a sawed-off shotgun and a bunch of jet. Not exactly sure what is going on here, but I just thought it was an interesting find. But to be perfectly honest, there is not a whole lot of loot down here. Now over in these lockers, we can find a teddy bear just kind of sitting in one of them. I thought that was cute. I always think teddy bears are just so out of place in Fallout. And as we come out of the metro, we will find the outcast at the very top. This man, Defender Moril, and he will immediately talk to us and give us a warning, telling us that we shouldn't be here, and that it's very dangerous because there's a firefight taking place. However, he says if we help him, well, that is our own choice. So there are some super mutants here. All of these super mutants were really high levels for me. Not sure if it's just I'm a high level, or it's supposed to be that way since we are with the outcasts. Either way, using the scoped 44 Magnum, the Blackhawk, it was actually pretty easy to deal with all of these super mutants and to rack up a good amount of XP by just kind of killing them off from a distance. Also make sure to loot all the bodies, as of course they have a lot of ammunition on the bodies. But eventually we'll have to go through this building, either office building or apartment building, and it'll be again filled with some super mutants. There's even a centaur in this one, but centaurs are pretty easy to kill. Me and the outcast took out this super mutant above us, and then he fell down on the other side. Now in this next room is where things can get a little bit insane, because there was a super mutant overlord with a Gatling laser, and he pretty much just suppresses you wherever you go. He stands in the middle of the room, and he can be a little bit tricky to kill. I was sniping out some of the other super mutants with my Blackhawk before I switched to the Victory Rifle. While the Victory Rifle doesn't do a ton of damage, it does knock enemies over, so eventually it knocked him over, which allowed me to run to the other side of the room so I could get some better shots and deal some more damage on him. Also, the outcast just completely, annihilated him as well. Kill him, and then you can take his Gatling laser if you don't already have one. After this, we'll find this really large, kind of unfinished facility, and this is the Outcast Outpost. Also, we were ambushed from behind. Don't know if that's normal or not, but just thought I'd go ahead and show it. But anyway, Defender Moril will ask us why did we help him, to which I responded that I heard his signal over the radio. And he's like, it's a secure channel, how did you hear it? And then he realizes we have a Pip-Boy. And the Pip-Boy allowed us to listen in to his radio signal. So he then has a keen interest in our Pip-Boy, and he says we can now go downstairs to talk to his leader. So we will start to descend into the Outcast Outpost, where we can overhear two Outcast members talking about, well, why aren't they just killing you and then taking the Pip-Boy off of your dead body? But yeah, they might actually just do that. For the sake of the story, they can't do that. So we'll come downstairs and Defender Sibley will be waiting for us. And then about 1.5 minutes later, he will take us to his leader. Kind of hate things like this, but anyways, he will walk us through the facility. We can find a pretty nice facility, actually, considering this is the post-apocalypse. And we finally find Protector McGraw. And McGraw is the man in charge here. He has a keen interest in our Pip-Boy because it'll allow him and the rest of the outcasts to access a simulation. If you complete this simulation, it unlocks a deeper part of the bunker, which might have a bunch of valuable loot. Now, the problem is, if you die in the simulation, you die in real life, blah, blah, blah. A very tired plot point, but around the time this DLC came out, I'm sure it was all the rage. But to be fair, how else are we supposed to experience Operation Anchorage? So I'll give them credit where it's due. It's a good way to experience it. After that, we will be brought to Specialist Olin, who just has a really bad attitude, and she will give us a jumpsuit, which we have to wear in order to use the simulation. So we'll put on that suit, and now we can enter Operation Anchorage. But that is a story for another day. And there you guys have it, the very beginning of Operation Anchorage, Bailey's Crossroads. Now, while this part of the quest is pretty small and actually probably quite forgotten, it is still pretty fun. It introduces a whole new portion of the map, which was, previously just ruins that were inaccessible. So just kind of cool to add more places from real life into Fallout 3, but unfortunately there is really no special loot within this area, besides just, the normal typical ammunition and whatever else you find on the bodies. And with that though, we can now start Operation Anchorage, so I'm very excited to play through this DLC. It's been a long time since I played it, so I don't remember it so well, so I think it'll be a lot of fun. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you have any ideas for future videos or future locations, please post them in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you guys think of Operation Anchorage. Do you have any ideas or thoughts on this DLC? Please drop them in the comments below as well. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, until next time. (2066) In the spring of this year, the Chinese crude oil supply will run dry. Oil fields across the world dry up, with some of the only oil fields remaining being in Alaska. Desperate, the Chinese launch a massive gamble, invading Alaska in the winter of 2066. The gamble, surprisingly, pays off. The Chinese military is able to capture Alaska, and the US military is retreating on all fronts. It is a complete military disaster for the United States. Of course, the United States would not just simply surrender Alaska. And with the creation of power armor around 2067, the United States began to push back. However, the United States needed to push military assets through Canada, and while Ottawa would eventually cave in, this would also pave the way for the US annexation of Canada in 2072. Now, many Canadians would resist their new American overlords. However, they were quickly put down by the US military, although many continued to fight bravely until the day the bombs fell in 2077. Meanwhile, in Alaska, the battle raged on. It was no doubt a very hard-fought battle on all fronts, with tons of people losing their lives for oil. But in 2077, the United States would finally liberate Anchorage, Alaska, and, well, they would reclaim Alaska back for themselves, pushing the Chinese out. As a result, peace talks would shortly begin thereafter in Anchorage between the Chinese and the Americans. No doubt the Battle of Anchorage is one of the most famous events in all of Fallout, especially in the pre-war era. However, since it is pre-war era, we largely only hear about it. That is what is so unique about Operation Anchorage. This DLC in Fallout 3 puts us in a simulation that lets us see part of the Battle of Anchorage, which is pretty cool. This DLC allows us to enter a simulation created by the US government that will allow us to experience the battle for ourselves. But since it was created by the US government, we have to remember it's highly propagandized, so we have to keep in mind that everything happening here is for the glory of the United States, and not everything may have been as it seems in this simulation. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. The last time on the Unexplored Capital Wasteland, we checked out Bailey's Crossroads, which takes us to the Outcast headquarters, and takes us here to the simulation. Upon completing the simulation, we can get a nice bit of loot in the vault that is in this base. Of course, the Outcast also want their hands on it, but they promise to share. Surely that won't be a problem in the future. Anyways, as we enter the simulation, it's worth noting, it's one of those storylines where if you die in the simulation, you die in real life. Why you would ever invent something like that, I don't know, but this kind of storyline was popular back when this DLC was released, way back in 2009. Man, do I feel old or what? But anyways, as we enter the simulation, we'll be woken up by this man, Sergeant Benjamin Montgomery. And he tells us that apparently we fell off the cliff, and he is surprised that we are okay. So am I, falling off a cliff. You would expect a few broken bones or something, but hey, nothing that a stim pack won't fix. Only there are no stim packs in this simulation. Littered around the map are little health and ammo depots that will refill our ammo and health. So we don't have to worry about stim packs or radiation or anything like that. But it does play a bit like a first-person shooter, traditional linear first-person shooter. So to me, this DLC is like the Call of Duty side quest in Fallout 3. Anyways, we start up on these cliffs just outside of Anchorage, and Sergeant Benjamin Montgomery just kind of climbs up this cliff. I always thought this was kind of funny, but he just climbs up this cliff and goes on his merry way. He tells us we can go in silent or guns a-blazing. However, I really don't know how to go in silently because I'm always spotted by the Chinese soldiers ahead. We see a parachute on the ground, probably from our fall or something. Who knows? But anyways, after that, we can walk along the cliff. If we read these signs, it just says caution, high winds, no safety equipment, do not proceed. We don't have safety equipment, but hey, mama didn't raise no bitch. After that, we'll continue up along the cliffs, and eventually we will encounter our first Chinese soldier. And we also have one of these other signs, property, U.S. Army, no unauthorized personnel. Well, I guess it's now Chinese personnel. Gotta control it. I mistakenly shot this little thing here, thinking it was an oil canister, which kind of just gave away my presence. This thing next to him is actually a health dispenser. This would be your first introduction to how health is replenished. Guess I've just been playing too much Call of Duty or something, thinking it was like an oil canister to blow them up. Anyways, after that, the Chinese soldiers immediately knew where I was, so the element of sneak was, well, way out the window. And then this Chinese soldier was just shooting me from afar with automatic weapons. I just had this tiny little silenced 10mm, which, well, it kind of fucking sucks. But anyways, we'll go ahead and get closer to the Chinese soldier so we can kill him. After killing this soldier, we will have to cross on this large suspension bridge. Kind of scary, just kind of crossing over this giant canyon in the mountains of Alaska. Kind of a cool feeling as you cross. But yeah, we just have to keep making our way forward, and there are some more soldiers ahead of us, but luckily they haven't seen us yet. But as we make our way up, they will spot us, so we'll just take them out with our small silenced 10mm. Honestly, this part of the DLC is really easy. Eventually we find this sniper rifle next to a health distributor, and the sniper rifle makes things really easy in the next part, as we just shoot these soldiers who are kind of stuck on this bridge. I mean, not stuck, but they just choose to fight us from there for whatever reason, and we just kill them pretty easily. And then we can come inside this house here, and we will find a Chinese assault rifle, so we'll pick that up, and we can also find some ammunition, and we'll just keep shooting the Chinese soldiers from far away. This part is pretty easy. You might take some damage, but since there's a health distributor nearby, well, it's not a very big deal. So, like I said, just take out all of the snipers. Now, if we backtrack here, following up this kind of fallen bridge, we will find a stealth boy. There's a few stealth boys hidden around the DLC. Stealth boys were obviously developed by the Chinese, so they are quite rare in Fallout, and they are quite useful. Of course, the DLC is just adding them because, well, we're fighting the Chinese, so obviously they would have stealth boys. And eventually we will reach this door, which will take us inside of this cave system. Now, as we make our way inside, we will find some Chinese propaganda on our right. I believe this sign says something about Chinese people, not really sure, but obviously this is Chinese propaganda. So, yeah, if you know what it actually says in the comment section below, please let me know. I just know the first part is talking about China, based on my understanding of kanji. But as we go into the next room, we will find a soldier being thrown from above, and then this Chinese soldier will shoot us. And this soldier that fell from above was carrying a Gauss rifle. I'm assuming it was a Chinese or maybe American soldier. Don't know why they fell. Anyways, we'll pick up that Gauss rifle for use later. Actually, I never used the Gauss rifle during the first part of this campaign, but hey, whatever. Anyways, we'll keep moving our way through this cave system. Eventually, a dead Chinese soldier will fall, and then this black figure falls from above. I actually thought this was a Chinese soldier, so I shot him. I shot him some more, and I found out, well, it's Sergeant Benjamin Montgomery. I have no idea why he was so black, or like why he was so darkly shaded, but I definitely couldn't tell. Anyways, we will rendezvous with him, and then he will tell us that he had some trouble getting here, even though for us it was pretty easy. But this one leads me to talk about some kind of issues I had during this DLC. It's that American soldiers and Chinese soldiers look awfully alike. There's a few instances where I had friendly fire incidents. However, because the friendlies in this DLC, for whatever reason, do not take damage from you, I didn't deal damage to them, which I guess is good, question mark. But also would add some interesting things if you could have friendly fire. But hey, anyways, doesn't really matter. After that, we will make our way out with Sergeant Benjamin Montgomery, and we'll just make our way down this cliff. Now, here I got in a really sticky situation. I was getting shot from multiple angles. This was actually one of the most difficult parts of the DLC for me. I whipped out my sniper rifle, and I was able to kill everyone. After this, if you cross the pipe, you don't have to go this way. This is optional, but we will find a health distributor on the other side, along with a very easy locked door. Now, if you're playing through this DLC, you will want to come to this room because we can find some hidden intel. Now, before we talk about the hidden intel, there is a terminal in here that contains a transcription from, well, a Chinese transmission, and it just talks about some of the defenses and the attackers that are happening in Alaska at the time of the Chinese invasion in 2066. But besides that, we can also find this holotape bombardment, which I will play for you later, and also underneath the desk is some intel. You'll definitely want to pick up this intel because there's 10 pieces throughout the DLC, and finding all 10 will give you a perk. But let's go ahead and take a look at that holotape.
Audio log begin. This is Captain Zachary Lloyd, United States Army Anchorage, Alaska Security Detachment. We are approximately 2 hours into the Chinese assault on this outpost. We're being shelled non-stop, indiscriminately. The entire base is under bombardment from the Chinese ships, and they don't care who they hit. All accounts indicate they've actually killed more of their own men than ours. They just do not seem to care about their own troops at all. At this rate, the entire mountain will be a graveyard in less than an hour, and then the Chinese will just move in and set up shop. God help us. God help America.
Now, I don't know how accurate these holotapes are, if they are real holotapes found, or if they just put in there because, again, this is a simulation, if they're just put in there to make whoever the simulator, the person in the simulation is, if it's just meant to make them kind of feel closer to the United States, and to make them feel so pissed off at the Chinese. Don't really know, but anyways, they're kind of interesting to listen to, and we'll continue listening to them throughout the rest of the DLC. But anyways, eventually we'll kind of come to this large bridge and a bunch of facilities. As we cross the first bridge, we will find another very easy locked door. We will force our way inside, being chased by the Chinese soldiers. The Chinese soldiers actually will follow you inside quite hilariously, just because they just got fucking wrecked. But inside this small room, we will find another holotape, and this is the holotape Goodbye, which, as you might imagine, well, it is a bit sad. Let's take a listen.
Molly, I hope this tape gets to you, some way, somehow. I don't have a lot of time, but you need to know what happened to me. The early reports weren't bullshit. The Chinese are here. As in, they're invading Anchorage in force, right now. This is the real deal. It makes Pearl Harbor look like an Academy exercise. I've never seen so many goddamn warships. Sergeant Lowry has ordered the platoon to assemble in the mess in 15 minutes. The plan is to dig in on the cliffs and slow the Chinese advance until the civilian contractors can evacuate. And then we hold the line for as long as we can. I talked to Durney, Cielo, and Dallas, and we all agreed surrender is not an option. I never told you, but that night in Cleveland, on the Ferris wheel, that was when I fell in love with you. Goodbye, Molly. I'm sorry. This is Private First Class Henry Hodges, signing out.
Kind of a sad holotape, and I hope it is not real, but hey, who knows? They probably did include real holotapes just to piss you off even more. But inside there's also some intel which we can find. Now, talking about this intel, there's 10 pieces throughout the DLC. You only have one opportunity to recover all 10 because you cannot go back to a lot of these places. And of course, once you finish the DLC, well, it is complete. So you definitely want to find all 10, and upon finding all 10, you will receive the Covert Ops perk, which will permanently increase your science, small gun, and lockpick skills by +3. Pretty damn good. Now, as we progress to the next area, we will find this door to a cave passage, or we can go out to our left here across this large bridge, but there's a couple of pillboxes up on the hill, and they'll just rain down bullets upon you, and it's just kind of a suicide mission to walk across that bridge. So we will take the nice, safe cave passage, and there's just a lone Chinese soldier in here. Pretty easy to kill. We'll then make our way back outside, and we have a pretty good vantage point to take out some of the soldiers in those pillboxes. Then we can make our way down without much trouble. We'll go ahead and kill the rest of the Chinese soldiers. Don't know what this Chinese Inferno unit was doing, but he refused to attack me, and then he tried to crouch. Maybe he was just surrendering. I have no idea. Sometimes it's just, gotta love Bethesda games. There's some health on the top pillbox, and after that we will make our way inside of this large ammo depot. Now in here there are two paths you can choose to go. There is a top route and a bottom route. I'll show you both ways just because the top route has some of that sweet hidden intel. But I got into a pretty intense fight against the Chinese soldiers, and then of course I shot my teammate because I just can't tell the damn difference between him and the Chinese soldiers at times. This Chinese soldier decided to walk into my bullets. Thank you very much, good sir. Makes killing you a lot easier. Now on the upper level, as we make our way through this kind of winding hallway, eventually you'll find this very easy locked door, and we'll pick the lock and we will find some intel, and then another holotape, this time holotape invasion. Also, there is a stealth boy next to it. But let's go ahead and take a listen to that holotape.
Audio log begin. This is Captain Zachary Lloyd, United States Army, Anchorage, Alaska Security Detachment. Approximately 23 minutes ago, Chinese Communist forces set foot on Anchorage soil, despite our soldiers' best efforts to prevent that landing. As expected, the Chinese have launched a two-pronged attack, one aimed at occupying Anchorage proper, and the other at securing this base. Thanks to our entrenchment, U.S. casualties here on the mountain are currently minimal, but that's not going to last for long. Chinese reinforcements appear to be endless. It's just a matter of time before we're overrun. We'll die today, but by God, we'll give those communist sons of bitches a black eye they'll never forget. Lloyd out.
And as we enter the next room, we will find a staircase that leads down. There will be a Chinese soldier there. Now, I was pretty sure that this staircase was just the bottom route, as I mentioned earlier, but I decided to go back just to double check, and yes, I was correct. The bottom route just leads you up this staircase, and there was a Chinese soldier there. Now, at the bottom of the staircase, though, there is a lot of ammunition and a health distributor, so you might want to hit that up if you have low ammo or low health. Now, as we make our way into the next room, we can see like an underground river at the very bottom. Sergeant Benjamin Montgomery here will make a mention about the Chimera tanks, but apparently we don't have to worry about them because they are out of range. But if I learned anything from Halo, nothing is out of range of a tank. Anyways, as we go in further into this like ammo depot, we will find some more Chinese soldiers, obviously. Be careful not to fall off the cliff here. I have no idea what this Chinese soldier was doing. He was trying to run towards Sergeant Benjamin. Perhaps Sergeant Benjamin's a traitor, and they're just like, they love each other. I have no idea. But anyways, he ran past me, didn't shoot, and we find some more ammunition. Next to this terminal, we will find a very easy locked door, and inside we find, guess what? Some more intel. There are also some frag grenades that might be helpful if you like using explosives, and there's also a terminal, and on this terminal we can find some of the protocols for the evacuation of Anchorage, Alaska, and also some protocols for shooting down a ballistic missile, something that would obviously be very relevant to the Great War, but of course this simulation was developed right before the Great War. But either way, it is quite interesting and is worth a quick read if you have the time, but I won't bore you with all the details. Now, as we continue making our way through this large depot, eventually we'll find another health distributor as we walk up these stairs, and we'll find another cave part. There's this Chinese soldier just staring at me. Thankfully, Sergeant Montgomery has my back. We then kill the Chinese soldiers again at this part. Be careful not to walk off the ledge, because if you walk off, well, it is instant death. So just keep taking out the Chinese soldiers. It is actually quite easy. As long as you're a respectable level, even a low level might find it quite easy. And eventually we'll find this room with all of these artillery shells, and Sergeant Montgomery will say perhaps the Chinese are running low on artillery, and we didn't need to come all of this way, but that actually turns out not to be the case, as we'll find out later. Of course, this is a simulation, so who knows how true anything is in it, but we will find some more propaganda as we make our way through. Eventually we'll find this long hallway, and on our right, if we open up this door, this very easy locked door, we'll find a holotape overrun. And let's go ahead and take a listen to this holotape.
Oh, Molly, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I can't do this. I'm so afraid, Molly. I don't want to die. Oh my God, I don't want to die. We held them as long as we could. I swear we did. Then Cielo asked for a magazine, and when I turned to give it to him, a shell hit, and he's gone, Molly. He was there 1 second, and then he wasn't. His blood and bits of him. Oh, my God, he's all over me. Please, 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 let them leave. Let them leave. Let them leave. I just want to come home. I just want to be with you again. I'm hiding now. The Chinese are everywhere. I'm a coward. I'm a coward, I know, but I don't care. If they find me, I'm surrendering.
So obviously in that holotape we can learn about some of the US soldiers that surrendered during the initial invasion. I just thought that clip right there you just saw was really funny as the Chinese soldier kind of ducked right as he was aiming at him. Just reminded me of a game of Groundhog or something, or Smack the Mole is what it's actually called. Anyways, eventually we'll find this very large room just filled with artillery shells, and Sergeant Montgomery will say he is wrong. You will see 2 Chinese soldiers fall from above, these 2 Crimson Dragons, which are kind of just like versions of Chinese elite special ops units, but they're incredibly easy to kill. They have very low health. The only thing is they have stealth boys so they can turn invisible on you, but besides that, they're really easy to kill, which is kind of a shame. This DLC honestly is so easy, and that's just kind of a shame. I wish there was a lot more challenge or a lot more thought into it, but it's really just shoot, 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 and shoot some more. Now, this Crimson Dragon did admittedly scare the fucking shit out of me. He just came out of nowhere, but killing him was, well, piece of cake. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. We have an ammo depot and some health as we exit. As we come outside, we will find these 3 artillery guns, and this is the objective of our current mission. We want to destroy these 3 guns. Now, do not be a fucking idiot like I am. At this point, I would just kill, 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 and kill some more. So we put an explosive charge, and I failed to read that I had 20 seconds to reach a safe distance. Honestly, I thought I had a detonator on me for some reason, so I began clearing out this pillbox, and bada bing, bada boom, I was dead as shit because I didn't get out of the area fast enough. You have 20 seconds to evacuate upon placing an explosive charge, so this time I planted the charge and just ran back towards the area I walked in. Now, right underneath the area where you exit from the artillery ammo depot, you will find this Chinese sniper on the cliff below. Killing him is pretty darn easy, and you will also find some ammunition and health next to his dead body on this cliffside. So a pretty good area to check out that is kind of hidden. Anyways, I decided to head back towards the artillery gun we just destroyed, and I decided to go ahead and loot around and collect some more ammunition. However, it is worth noting something I didn't realize. Upon completing your first mission here, you will not keep anything that you got from this area, so picking up all of those microfusion cells and stuff is really not worth it if you're not going to use the Gauss cannon at all during this part. That Chinese Inferno unit just had a suicide mission there. He really had a death wish. Just appears all of them have a death wish in this DLC. They're always just trying to fucking die. Don't know why. Anyways, we'll make our way up to towards the middle or top artillery gun, and you can see Anchorage way off in the distance. Doesn't really look much like a town. I know Anchorage is the largest city in Alaska, so a little bit disappointing from far away. Anyways, we'll go ahead and make our way to the other artillery gun real quick. At this point, I was just trying to kill all of the Chinese soldiers before I planted the explosive devices. That way I wouldn't have any trouble when trying to escape. I made my way back towards the center artillery unit, and from there I would go ahead and plant my explosives. From here, finishing the first mission was, well, pretty darn easy. Also, each artillery cannon has health and ammo, which just makes this even easier. We have our first big explosion from the middle cannon, and as we make our way further down, just trying to escape, get to a safe distance, I decided to look back, and we can see the last and final explosion. Pretty epic, actually, but, you know, usually cool guys do not look at explosions. Anyways, after that, the screen will fade white, and then we will talk to this fuckface, General Chase, who just completely reminds me of some Enclave motherfucker, but yeah, anyways, apparently he's a good guy here, but I really find that hard to believe. Anyways, he will congratulate us on destroying all 3 artillery shells. I almost said killing all 3, but, well, artillery cannons are not alive, so destroying all 3 artillery cannons, and then he will fill us in on our next mission. Honestly, this part is pretty boring. He just tells us that there's 3 objectives, and he basically tells us that we need to clear out 2 of the objectives first before tackling the 3rd and final target. Yada yay, yada boom, yada la la la. Pretty easy. After this, we will talk to Lieutenant Morgan, who tells us that we will be given a squadron, and that we can even choose our squadron, which I actually think is pretty damn cool. So I decided to go ahead and just go with a normal infantryman, and also a sentry bot, because why the fuck would you not want a sentry bot on your team? After that, you will be able to also choose your arsenal of weapons. I actually think I may may have made a mistake, maybe not, we'll talk about it more later, but I went ahead and chose the heavy weapons package. Again, we'll talk more about it later. Anyways, outside we will find your squadron of soldiers, and basically you're called the Suicide Squad because, well, you're going on 3 suicidal missions. Again, this is just the Call of Duty DLC for Fallout 3. Now, there is some pretty funny dialogue here with Sergeant Benjamin Montgomery, where you can try and tell him that this is all a simulation, but he refuses to believe you. But I just thought we had some really funny dialogue options, and you need a high enough science and intelligence skill in order to do this kind of dialogue. But I just thought it was funny, but of course, the sergeant doesn't fall for what you are saying. And after that, I decided to go ahead and check out the infirmary, where you can find a lot of soldiers in pain and stuff, obviously injured during the battle. We can find a holotape in here called Psycho. So let's take a listen.
Physician's log, Dr. Adrian Adami, United States Army, Anchorage, Alaska, forward base. Considering what's at stake, General Chase and I both feel the chem code name Psycho can be of significant use during this operation. I've read the early clinical trials, and there are certainly some possible side effects. Dementia, psychotic aggression, and of course addiction. But the adverse effects do seem limited. Okay, I do realize the chem was developed by Chase's R&D division, but if the thing works, it works. Can we really afford to be picky at this point? Some of these ground pounders have family in Anchorage. I'll give them any boost I damn well can. I just hope my Hippocratic Oath is still speaking to me when this whole mess is over with.
To me, this audio tape is perhaps one of the most horrifying just because it's trying to justify the use of Psycho, a highly addictive, really bad drug within the Fallout universe. Now, after this, we can go to the ammo depot where we have the quartermaster, and he will give us our heavy weapon that obviously we chose. Now, there are other loadouts which you can choose from, and you can change your loadout once. And if you have a high enough speech skill like I do, he will also give you a Gauss rifle. I only recommend taking the heavy weapon loadout if you can get a Gauss rifle. Now, there is a short section where you might want the heavy weapon loadout, but in this first section where we go ahead and take on the mining town, you will definitely want the sniper loadout, at least in my opinion, because we will have to fight a lot of snipers, and there's a lot of Chinese soldiers that you have to fight from long range. Here we can see that McKinney here gets fucking wrecked by a Chinese sniper. Again, I would recommend the sniping unit, because here I kind of got a little bit wrecked by this sniper up here. Now, I would have hit him with my Gauss rifle, but the Gauss rifle decided to hit an invisible wall. Thanks a lot, Mr. Todd Howard. Anyways, after this missile launcher absolutely wrecked his own shit when he launched a missile directly into the side of the sandbags, which drained his health by half. So thanks a lot, you dumbass Chinese soldier. After that, we will want to head up towards where that Chinese soldier blew himself up. We will find another Chinese launcher with another missile launcher. Obviously, that's why he's called a launcher. We will kill him. And up in here, in this destroyed building, we can find the second intel briefcase, as you can see over there on that thing. But before we do that, we'll go ahead and pick up some ammunition, because, well, obviously there's a lot of it here. And there is that other intel. So we have 5 out of 10. Halfway done. Pretty darn easy, if you ask me, as long as you know where to look. But up here, there really isn't a whole lot, and you have no reason to go up here, so this intel would actually be pretty darn easy to miss. Now, after clearing out this first area in the mining town, you will eventually come up to the second area where there's a large Chinese flag. There's a lot of Chinese soldiers in this area, and we can also find some American soldiers who were taken prisoner. In the very back room of this destroyed building, we'll find a captured American soldier and a health distributor. Simply talk to the American soldier to free him. After that, we blew up this Chinese soldier, quite comically, if I may add, and then we will just kill the rest of the Chinese soldiers. Now, as we progress even further, we will find what I call Sniper Alley. And while these snipers are not nearly as annoying as Jackal snipers in Halo 2, or any other Halo game for that matter, but they drained my health a lot, and the next battle at the comm station was hell, and I literally had no health as I entered the comm station, so I decided to go all the way back, and when I went back, I noticed that the Chinese flag is now replaced with an American flag, just a really cool detail. And then after that, we will actually go into the comm center. We'll go inside, we'll kill all of the Chinese. Now, this Chinese technician is not hostile, but we can still kill him, and he's Chinese, so, you know, well, we're at war, so fuck him. I'm not going to leave him alive, so I just murdered him. Anyways, I went in here initially with really low health, and I died a lot, I learned that there is a Chinese sniper hiding on the other side of this door. I just threw a frag grenade, blew him up. He fell to the ground, not completely dead, but I just walked in and I shot him while he was on the ground. Man, am I one evil son of a bitch. Now, as we come to the next area, there's a small staircase, and just underneath the staircase, we can find another piece of intel, so make sure you pick up that bad boy. But the rest of the area is pretty easy, just killing more and more Chinese soldiers, and eventually you'll find a health distributor. Now, this is one area I wanted to just point out. One thing I don't really like about the health distribution system in this DLC is if you get to an area that is kind of difficult, but there's a health distributor, it completely removes the issue of difficulty, because you just run in there, guns a-blazing. Who cares if you get shot, because, well, there's a health distributor right next to you. Kind of destroys the fun and the intensity of the DLC. It makes it a lot easier. Anyways, after that, we'll clear out the main room of this communication center. There's some more health and ammunition here, but I was immediately shot from behind by a, well, Chinese sniper. There are 2 Chinese snipers out in this outside area. Just take them both out, and upon doing that, you will finish the objective for this area. So pretty darn easy, which is just securing the Chinese listening post. And after that, Sergeant Montgomery will talk to us, and then we will, after finishing your dialogue, after that, we will be teleported back to the headquarters. And there is Lieutenant Morgan once again, but we will just keep the same loadout and stuff. Now, as we make our way outside, there is a bit of an Easter egg. We can find this news reporter asking 3 soldiers to pose so he can take a photograph. And he remarks that this photograph might become famous, who knows, but he will take the picture. Now, this pose is the same pose that we can find at the Anchorage War Memorial, just in the middle of Washington, D.C. I already made a video about this location. It's attached to Morta Brown, to the Wasteland Survival Guide quest, but I made a video about it already, so if you're more curious or anything about that, please go ahead and check out that video as well. But anyways, that is where the pose comes from, but it is worth mentioning that the soldiers are holding slightly different weapon models in the actual picture versus the statues that we find in downtown Washington. Anyways, after that, we'll make our way to the Chimera base, or the Chimera tank base, which is where we have to go next, and we have to destroy it. Here, there are a ton of Chinese soldiers, and I actually found this to be one of the more fun encounters in the game, but of course, there's a health distributor nearby, so the stakes are actually kind of low. I went ahead and just killed all of the Chinese soldiers, and while the firefight was pretty intense because there's a health distributor right next to me, it made it a lot less intense. I just saw it flashing as I approached, so I went ahead, got my health, and got all the ammunition I could carry, which is, well, infinite. After that, we will continue forward, and we're just kind of in this little camp. We have our first encounter with a Chinese dog, and another thing I want to mention is during this part of the game, we get some encounters with different Chinese enemies. Also, there's an intel in this tent here, in the westernmost tent, as we approach this kind of old building here. As you can see, this old mining building. But anyways, something I wanted to mention is there's a severe lack of enemy diversity during this DLC. Almost all of the enemies, and I shot this American soldier because I can't tell the difference. Anyways, almost all of the enemies are Chinese soldiers, and there isn't much variety. You have like one Chinese dog you fight throughout the whole mission, and as you approach the next area, we have the 3rd different enemy, which are these spider drones. Now, the spider drones, I think, are pretty interesting, and I wonder why they were not utilized more in this DLC. They kind of remind me of suicide grunts from Halo. They just kind of walk up to you, and then they explode. They are quite weak, and they're easy to destroy, but if they get close to you, they will cause a lot of damage. I think it's a pretty interesting and kind of cool enemy to have in Fallout, but it's very underutilized in this DLC. Anyways, as we approach the Chimera tank base, if we go in this first little building on the left of the entrance, we will find another intel briefcase. We're almost finished finding all of the intel. Now, initially, I thought this part of the DLC was pretty easy. You just kill all of the soldiers, and then you plant the explosives, yada yada. It's pretty simple. But after that, I quickly realized that that is not all there is. Now, there are some soldiers above us, but my squadron was able to take care of them. As I enter the next area, there was a Chimera tank active and trying to kill me with its, like, Tesla cannon or something on it. However, using the missile launcher, which is part of the heavy weapon loadout, it was pretty easy to destroy. So perhaps having a heavy weapon loadout for the Chimera base attack is actually pretty useful. After that, we will plant explosives on the 2 Chinese depot fuel tanks, which we can find within the base. After that, again, we have 20 seconds to get as far away as possible. We will watch the explosion in all of its glory, and then we will destroy the last and final fuel depot tank, which is, well, pretty easy, and because we killed all of the Chinese soldiers. And after that, after you do all of that, Sergeant Montgomery will talk to you, just kind of congratulating us and being like, hey, we fucking did it. And I'll be like, yes, I did it all without any help from my squadron. Well, that's a lie. But anyways, after that, we will be teleported again back to HQ, and we can prepare for the final assault on the Chinese position. Now, I do have to remark that this part right here was actually one of my favorite parts of the DLC. You have the Chinese just flinging all of these artillery shells at you as you kind of cross this no man's land, and then you reach the American trench. And to me, this is one of the more epic parts of the DLC, and I quite enjoyed it. However, I don't think there's any real danger from the Chinese artillery. Anyways, as we go into the Chinese trench, obviously we will find a lot of Chinese soldiers, so just take them out. This part is actually kind of, well, unfortunately, it is really fucking easy. As we go through the Chinese trench, of course, we will find some health distributors, so we'll just get our health back. Inside this little area, there's an American prisoner, and 9 out of 10, we can find another piece of intelligence. 9 out of 10, almost done. Anyways, we'll just keep making our way through the Chinese trench, just kill, 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 and kill some more, really easy. And while this part might have started really epically, I was actually really disappointed in the final part because I just wanted to get it the fuck over with. At this point, it was just kind of boring. You're just literally massacring these poor Chinese soldiers. You take all of the ammunition, you kill some more Chinese soldiers in these destroyed buildings, you go through some more trenches, get some health, kill some more Chinese, get some health, kill some Chinese. And I can see why people may not like this DLC so much, or might think it's a bit of a disappointment. Eventually you have to assault this pillbox, which has some turrets in it, pretty easy. And then you come to the control station where we find the final and last piece of intel. We got 10 out of 10. Congratulations if you did it, because we get a pretty good perk. After that, we activate this switch here, which, of course, will disable the Chinese pulse field and will allow us to assault the Chinese compound and will eventually lead to the liberation of Anchorage, Alaska. We just kind of walk across this no man's land. There are some turrets that are going to be shooting us, but even though I destroyed these turrets, you really don't have to, because the American soldiers will just destroy them for you. We go into the next area where you will find the leader of the Chinese army, General Zheng Wei. I hope I said that right. I don't know, but anyways, General Zheng Wei, who is the leader of the Chinese forces here in Alaska. We can either fight him and kill him, or we can use our speech for him to just commit suicide, which is kind of anticlimactic. The Chinese will be then killed by your American, well, companions, and then the DLC is over. The simulation is over. General Chase will then talk to us and congratulate us and say, hey, you did a good job. Thank you for all of your hard work. And with that, the simulation is over and the DLC is pretty much over. However, the most difficult fight is not over yet. As we exit the simulation and we go into the next room, we can find the leader of the outcast here, Proctor McGraw, and he will say, good job, and then we can take whatever we want from the armory. And as you go to the armory and you use this terminal to unlock it, thanks to your hard work and no one else's, so you should be rewarded for your hard work. However, Defender Sibley here and Protector McGraw have a big difference of opinion on how the loot should be shared, and they will get into an argument as soon as you open the vault door, and basically Defender Sibley wants to fucking kill you.
Keep your distance, Mud. No knowing what you've got breathing on you.
McGraw. This has gone on long enough.
Damn it, Sibley, now's not the time.
No, sir. Now is the time. There's no way in hell I'm letting this local walk out with anything.
I've made it quite clear that it's not your call. A deal's a deal.
Sorry, sir, but it is my call now. I'm not taking orders from you anymore.
Shouldn't you be huddling in a cave somewhere?
You're not gonna get away with this.
No, you're not going to get away with giving up the tech we risked our asses for.
Burn in hell, traitor.
I'll see you there.
Anyway, once this conversation ends, Sibley and the rest of the outcasts will attack you and Protector McGraw, and it can be extremely difficult, if not near impossible, to save McGraw and the other person, the other girl here, I forgot her name, doesn't really matter, but it can be nearly impossible to save them from being killed. But it is possible, and I'm about to show you how. It is actually quite easy. Upon opening the vault door, you want to push Protector McGraw into the room as so, and then you want to close the blast door. After that, you want to then push Defender Sibley towards the other outcast, and you want to use a Fat Man and a mini nuke here. Luckily for you, there is a mini nuke in the vault, so you can just, easily replenish any mini nukes you might lose, and basically you just stand away and you listen to their conversation. And as soon as McGraw talks about hell, they will all turn on you as soon as the radar turns red. Fire your mini nuke, they will all die, and everyone else is safe. McGraw will thank you for saving him and the other person here, and that we can take whatever we want from the vault. So, hey, everyone is happy in the very end. And thanks to you, well, we can now access this vault and get the weatherized T-51B power armor, which is fucking amazing. And there you guys have it, Operation Anchorage. Now, as I said many times throughout this DLC, Operation Anchorage, is a simulation created by the American government. So obviously it tells a very, one-sided version of Operation Anchorage, and I would hope to know a little bit more from the actual perspective of actual soldiers, and maybe even the Chinese perspective would be very interesting to see. And of course, with Fallout Season 2 coming out, and based on the trailer which we got so far, I do think we might see a bit more of Operation Anchorage. So I'm very curious to see how we see Operation Anchorage from the point of view of Cooper Howard versus the point of view of the player character in Fallout 3. Now, going through Operation Anchorage a second or third time, I do have to say I do think this DLC is a little bit disappointing. It plays like a very linear and not so well written FPS. Now, of course, it is, yes, propaganda from the US government, but I do wish the story was a little bit more dramatic or a little bit more in depth. I just wish there was more towards this DLC. I wish you could revisit it. It'd be really cool, actually, if Operation Anchorage, I think, was an open world DLC. But, of course, what we got was a linear FPS that just, it doesn't fit so well into the world of Fallout, in my opinion, but it does tell a very interesting perspective of Operation Anchorage, and it lets us see a little bit of the war between the Americans and the Chinese before the bombs fell. But if I'm being honest, Operation Anchorage plays a bit like a mod from a fan that was just created to add some gameplay and add some story to an otherwise really amazing game. Let me know what you guys think of Operation Anchorage in the comment section below. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? And just let me know why. I'm very curious to hear your opinions. Thank you so much for watching this very special edition of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you have any recommendations or ideas for future videos or future locations, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Hollowed Moor Cemetery, and to be honest, this is going to be a pretty quick video because this is a pretty small stop in our travels across the Capital Wasteland. But despite being quite small, there is a lot of really good loot here. So let's waste no more time and let's jump on into it. Now, Hollowed Moor Cemetery is located just northwest of Meresti Station and north of Big Town and south of the Germantown Police HQ. And as we approach from the south, kind of from Meresti Station, you will find this unmarked raider outpost along the river here. They have a little dock and stuff, but there's only 3 raiders here and they respawn every couple of days. So you can always come back and just kind of show them who's boss, I guess. But there actually is some okay loot here. We can find a bunch of Rad-X, also an ammunition box. But on this shelf here, next to this microscope, we can find some Rad-X, Also, in one of these boxes on the bottom shelf, if we pull it out, we can find some more Rad-X. So, not half bad considering it's an unmarked, just like raider outpost. Like I said, it's along the river. There's a boat and a dock. One of the raiders will be on the dock probably. But yeah, besides that, that's about it. Oh, also there's an outhouse, as you can see there. But besides that, that's pretty much all there is. So from here, we'll make our way up to the Hollowed Moor Cemetery. And this place is going to be inhabited by super mutants. There was only one super mutant for me, a super mutant master, along with his pet centaur. Pretty easy to deal with, especially having dog meat. Not much of a problem. Now, of course, the super mutants will be leveled, so depending on your level, they might be higher, they might be lower, but usually there are not too many super mutants, maybe 2 or 3 at most. Now, as you can see here, the cemetery is actually a church. As we come in on the podium, we can find Keller family transcript 2 of 5. There's 4 more scattered across the wasteland. And we can find a big book of science. And over here on this bench, we can find this radio. We'll turn it off, and there's a mini nuke inside of that box. That's really good. And then we come over here to this shelf. We can find a copy of the DC Journal of Internal Medicine, along with a first aid box. Now, normally there is a captive inside of the church here, but for whatever reason, the captive was not here for me. Don't know why that is. Don't know if it's just a glitch, if it happens at random sometimes, who knows. But outside we can see the actual cemetery. It's kind of an odd shape for a cemetery, kind of like snaking through the trees. And over here there's another little shack. Maybe sometimes there might be a super mutant in there. Have no idea. Also, we can find this bus here in pristine condition. So yeah, I just thought I'd point it out. Now, also over here on these rocks, we can use it to jump up on this collapsed portion of the monorail. However, the actual monorail itself has no hit detection, so you just fall through it, unfortunately. So that kind of sucks. But there you guys have it, Hollowed Moor Cemetery, a pretty basic location that has a lot of decent loot. It is kind of close to Vault 106, Vault 101, so I'm sure many players go here at the beginning of the game, and then they are attacked by super mutants. Alright guys, let me know if you have any fond experiences at this location. I would be interested to hear in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you have any ideas or recommendations for future locations or future videos, please post them in the comment section below. And until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be looking at Red Rocket Cul-de-sac, which is a name I've given to this area. I could not find any information about this area on the internet, even in the unmarked locations part of the Fallout 3 wiki. Now, Fallout 3's world is just filled with so many places that are unmarked and just are not very well detailed on the internet. However, I felt like this area had a lot going on, despite the fact that there is not a lot of information on it. And here on the world map, you can see the location of the Red Rocket Cul-de-sac, this little circle here, and it's just south of Wheaton Armory. Now, the reason I wanted to highlight this place is kind of the original theme of the Unexplored Mojave, which I started over almost 2 years ago now. But anyways, exploring locations that would be easily missed and overlooked by, players. And while I was just walking through here filming for another video, I was attacked by this Feral Ghoul Reaver and his Glowing One partner, which is a pretty tough encounter. Feral Ghoul Reavers are one hell of a fight. So I just killed them, and then I found this nice little roundabout and this red rocket stop. Just thought it was really cool and really easy to miss. There's also some Mr. Gusties nearby, so I went over and killed them. And during this fight, I got some pretty epic explosions at the cul-de-sac from these cars. Man, look at those. Look at that debris just go flying. And then there was another explosion. So yeah, just a lot of fun. Just kind of checking it out and exploring around. And these red rockets in Fallout 3 are quite nostalgic for me. I don't know. I mean, obviously in Fallout 4, they look much better. But something about them in Fallout 3 is very nostalgic. Now, on this cul-de-sac here, we have this, mailbox. Found some darts inside, but yeah, there's a destroyed house, not much really inside of it. In the middle, we have some, dead trees. If we go up the hill a bit, we can find another destroyed house with a bathtub. But yeah, not a whole lot inside as far as loot. And if we go up the hill, eventually we will find, a giant rad scorpion and another, destroyed house. Again, though, I couldn't find anything inside of the house. But this site is very common in Fallout 3, which makes the world a bit more, lived in, at least in my opinion, than, Fallout New Vegas. Now, I came over here and I found this, truck that is leaning against the train tracks above us, and inside there's some really good loot. We found a mini nuke, US-30 flamethrower recipes, which will increase your big gun skills, some stim packs, and a very hard-locked footlocker with a Chinese special ops training manual inside, which of course will increase our sneak. After this, I was ambushed by some raiders and some Talon Company mercs. Pretty interesting fight going on here that I was caught literally right in the middle of. So again, just a lot of fun. Like I said, there are these train tracks nearby, but unfortunately you cannot get on top of the tracks. The hitbox on these collapsed tracks is quite glitchy, and eventually you just kind of phase through it. And there's also an Enclave iBot that will pass through this area, as you can see here on the bottom of the screen. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers it for the Red Rocket cul-de-sac. Let me know what you guys think of this place in the comment section below. Do you guys even know of this place? What do you think? And will you ever stop here in the future? Now, there is some pretty decent loot here, actually. Mini nuke, 2 skill books. So it is worth a visit, in my opinion. And because it's not really surrounded by a whole lot, I do think it merits its own name. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you have any recommendations or ideas for future videos or future locations, please post them in the comment section below. And, as always, till next time.